Hey, this is Todd Dammit Kearns from Slash featuring Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators, Bruce Kulick, and so much more. And you are listening to the hottest podcast in the land, Shout It Out Loudcast, with Tom and Zeus.
Things changed in 1971 with Led Zeppelin releasing their mammoth fourth album, the Untitled album, only graced by symbols of the band's individual members. It shot them in a trajectory not seen before, with songs that have become memorable to rock and roll lore and history. The Led Zeppelin Chronicles, once again, breaks down Led Zeppelin and the iconic album, Led Zeppelin IV.
Hello, guys. Nice to see everyone at this little sabbatical. Looking forward to doing this album. Been waiting a long time. As mentioned in previous episodes, this is the album that helped me discover the band Led Zeppelin, and looking forward to going into great detail about an album that I think we all have a deep connection with. So looking forward to this. Welcome back.
Yeah, it's only been 7 months, so we're back. And I think everybody was a little bit maybe not scared of Led Zeppelin IV, but, you know, like Zeus and I was saying before we started recording, I don't think there's ever going to be a bigger album that we touched than this one. So a lot of information, a lot of feelings, a lot of nostalgia. So it should be good, right, Zeus?
Oh, yeah. So if you are a hard rock or rock and roll, even metal, put that category, I can't think of a bigger album than Zeppelin IV. Yep. This is the album. Yep. So we're going to have some fun with this, but this isn't a documentary. We're going to talk about the album. We're going to give you guys some our thoughts on the songs, the music, the lore, the album cover, and all that stuff. But we're not breaking this down into a 20 episode documentary, although it can be done on this album specifically.
Right. Yep.
But let's get into some fun, because this is Zeppelin IV, and it's got to be treated with the proper respect. But before we do Zeppelin IV, we got to wrap up Zeppelin III and our feedback. Zeppelin III we did, and we did a poll, as we usually do, with favorite 4 songs. Tom, how'd that go?
Yep. So we did the poll, and the 4 options that made our poll were Tangerine, Since I've Been Loving You, Celebration Day, and Out on the Tiles. And I was a little bit surprised by this. Not that I don't absolutely love the song, and it's one of my favorites, but Since I've Been Loving You ran away with the poll with 47%. Tangerine at 23%, Out on the Tiles at 20%, Celebration Day at 10%. Some comments here. James 6 Star says, I got into Zeppelin late in my listening years, always aware of them, and of course Stairway in my teens, but not till my 30s did I really start listening, mainly because Paul Stanley always mentioned them. I put Zepp as one of my favorites now. Richie Rich says, Out on the Tiles, but if I'm able to pick from their live The Song Remains the Same album, it would be Since I've Been Loving You in a slam dunk. Celebration Day really comes alive on that album also. Yeah, that is a killer live album. And then let's get into just a couple of episode-specific comments here. Ryan Frazier put a GIF together of Michael Scott in the office when he's running out of the building saying, oh my God, it's happening. Everybody stay calm. You can use that again right now. Our buddy Nige, fantastic episode as always. This is probably my favorite Zeppelin album. Since I've Been Loving You, That's the Way, Tangerine, and Out on the Tiles are all of my top 10. Also, check out John Paul Jones' bass line in the choruses of Immigrant Song. Insane. Yes, very true. Uncle Paulie commented here. It was so long ago when they did this album, I can't remember. He put it in quotes. So I don't know who said this, but somebody in the episode said, quote, he sucks, and so does his stupid mustache. Who said that?
I think that might have been me. Maybe did we talk about common IPs? I don't know. It has to be a common like comment.
I don't know. But anyways, that's what we got for some Twitter feedback.
You know, it's interesting. I've been watching reaction videos lately. I got in this thing on YouTube watching people react to songs for the first time.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've been watching, or was probably for like a whole week, I was watching all these reaction videos on Since I've Been Loving You live at Madison Square Garden in 73. It was from the Song Remains the Same movie and album. And I have to tell you, one of the most enjoyable things is watching women watch Robert Plant sing Since I've Been Loving You live and having an orgasm quietly while they're watching.
Jay, don't lie. That was you.
It was me, but no. But I'll send you guys some links when we're done, and just you tell me the timestamp of when they're going in a different direction in what they're feeling. Because his voice in that live version is so powerful and sexy. Like, I forget who said it years ago. If sex had a voice, it would sound like Robert Plant.
Oh, totally. Of course, especially in a song like that. Yeah. Zeus, what do you got on Facebook?
All right, our buddy Aaron Martell.
Yeah.
Fantastic episode, fellas. Zeus, your enthusiasm and passion for this album fired me up so much. I just need to go listen to it, like right now. And I'm totally with you on Bronyar Stomp. Just listen to Page's guitar on the break before the final verse. He gets so intense. It sounds like he's going to completely lose it. Then suddenly he pulls you right back into the main lick. Amazing. Kudos all around. But yeah, Zeus. Nice. Scott Wheeler says, I could listen to you guys talk about Zeppelin all day. Wait, I just did. Love the 3-hour episodes. Looking forward to Zeppelin IV. That was like 20 weeks ago.
Exactly.
Lemmy Blackmore. Love the episode, gents. We're all happy to see Zepp Chronicles back. I'm with you. Replace Hats Off with Hey, Hey, What Can I Do? And you have close to a perfect album. I'd love to hear a detailed review of that track, perhaps the ultimate cock anthem, so you would have fun breaking down the lyrics in Plant's delivery. Looking forward to the next one. I hope you continue with the official live releases. Not Led Zeppelin, but I'd love to hear you weigh in on the incredible Jimmy Page and Black Crowes live at the Greek. Shame Jimmy's bad back kept him from rolling on longer, as they were great together.
Oh, that live album is insane. Oh, it's so good.
Over on our YouTube page, Johnny B. Good writes, That's the Way is truly a Page and Plant masterpiece. It's my favorite track on the album. Guitar work is phenomenal, and Plant's vocals are some of his best here. Metalcore, Gallows Pole, Out of the Tiles, That's the Way. Led Zeppelin rocks this great album. Another Charles Bronson, Hey, Hey, What Can I Do? Belongs on this album. Hats off to Roy Harper. It does not. And that's our feedback, guys. So let's get into the album. Jay, you want to talk about your first experiences with Zeppelin IV?
Yeah. When I think of Led Zeppelin, I'm such a huge fan now. And I always mention my cousin from California bringing that duffel bag of bootlegs on a trip when I was going into my junior year of high school. But before that, I always knew Led Zeppelin. And I really wasn't crazy about them because what was going on with music at that time with the MTV generation and 80s rock and 80s glam rock. And it just didn't really fit into what I was listening to. Although there were some songs that I did know and I did enjoy, I'd have to say the first experience or first introduction to Zeppelin is I remember driving around with my parents as they listened to classic rock in their Buick as I sat in the back seat was Black Dog. And Black Dog was really the first song that I recognize as Zeppelin. And back then, the whole catalog has kind of shifted as we've moved on through the years. Songs like When the Levee Breaks was considered a deep, deep cut back then. Now it's not. Now it's one of their most essential songs and one of the most popular songs. But when you think of that time frame of the early 80s, mid 80s, it was Black Dog, it was Whole Lotta Love, it was Cashmere, it was the songs that they were known for. Stairway to Heaven, obviously. How can I even, forget that? But Black Dog was really the one that was like, oh, who's this? This is really interesting because of the way the vocals laid over the guitar and the way the drums played over the guitar. It was just very different with the time signature of what was going on, because it almost felt like Plant, Page, and Bonham were playing 3 different songs at once, which was really kind of interesting and cool. But yeah, that was definitely my first introduction to Zeppelin.
think on my side, I've talked about it in the previous episodes, how I discovered Zeppelin at a junior high dance. You would end in the 80s, the dance would end with this 7-minute, 55-second song that folks were gravitating to, the one that they wanted to have those final few moments with that night. And that allowed me to go find the album. And, I always think back, I was 14 when I stumbled upon it. And I think back to growing up where, next to my bed, I had a Walkman and I had 5 cassettes that I just played continuously through 87, 88. And I don't know why I didn't mix it up, but I'll always remember it. It was Aerosmith's debut album. It was Foreigner 4. I'm a big U2 fan, so I had Joshua Tree and their live show at Red Rocks and Zeppelin IV. And this was an album that, getting into bed, just pop it in, start with Black Dog, play it all the way through, flip it over, play the other side. And, dozens of times just playing it with the headphones on. So, even though I didn't really have a deep understanding of music, I don't play an instrument, there are just things that just jumped out on this album that, connected in a way that, this was something special when you're listening to it, even in the moment. And it just, even though I don't go to it all the time, getting ready for this episode, I forgot how important this was to me at that particular time. And then eventually led me down the rabbit hole a few years later to all their other stuff.
Yeah, Murph and I, kind of similar story. Again, we went to grade school. So the funny thing about playing Stairway to Heaven at a dance is, what the hell are you supposed to do with your partner when the guitar solo kicks in? You're still sitting there going, like, holding on to your girl. And it's like, what do we still go this slow right now? What do we do? Yeah, it's funny. I remember at our intro episode to Zeppelin Chronicles talking about how you got into Zeppelin. And I remember the moment when I got into Kiss, and we talked about this a lot, when I was 5, but I feel like Zeppelin has just been one of those things that's like part of like our, like, I'm sure we have a similar feeling, but it's like, it's just part of like your fiber. I don't remember not having Zeppelin part of me, whether you're listening to it, thinking about it, reading about it, feeling it, learning about it. It's just, it's a band unlike no other, which is exactly why we are doing a dedicated sidecast to the band. But yeah, Zeppelin IV, I remember having the cassette. And at the time, I didn't know, obviously I didn't know anything about the band. I mean, I had the cassette, when I was younger. I talk about my sister 4 years older than me. We got into a lot of the same music, and playing Zeppelin IV, the cassette, just nonstop. I traveled a lot growing up. I had a lot of family that lived up in Maine. So we were in the car driving a lot, and it was always Walkman, and it was always Zeppelin IV was always with me. And preparing for this episode, obviously research and notes. This is one album where I almost didn't even need to write down notes for all 8 of the songs, because I could play them in my head. I mean, I could tell you, the solo of when the Levee breaks. So like you know it. And I think that's the magic of a band like Zeppelin, magic, no pun intended. I just think that if you get it, you get it. And I think that's why this band is just, we always joke with some of our friends who like aren't into Zeppelin. I don't get it. I don't understand how you can't like this band. You don't have to be obsessed with Zeppelin, but I don't understand how you can't like be into them. And for us, I mean, I see behind Zeus, the stack of books. I have the same thing. It's just for me, you constantly want to just consume this band. And, yeah, Zeppelin IV is pretty much where it all starts for us. Yep. Murph holding up his, the 10 Commandments tablet of that giant Zeppelin book we have. But, yeah, Zeus.
So Zeppelin IV. I'm like you, Tom. I think part of the reason why this took 7 months to get to, it's just the daunting task that you have in front of you. Yep. Yeah, let's review Zeppelin. It's almost like I'm not worthy to talk about this. Like, where do I begin? I have 0 notes. I didn't take any because I'd be writing all fucking day. I know these songs maybe better than any album I've ever owned. I know everything about them. I can hum it. I know everything. So I'm like, what am I going to do? Right? I like that part in Stairway to Heaven.
True.
So I can talk about these songs without writing down all the crazy notes. And again, we're trying to talk about these, review this album. We're not doing a documentary, so I didn't need to put every 50,000 things that you can find about Zeppelin IV. But I can tell you this. So when I was the Kiss fan, I got back into Kiss, and I really started getting into music on my own, outside of my brother's scope, buying cassettes for the first time and stuff. And I was into hair metal. I liked Bon Jovi. I loved my Kiss. I had other stuff. Zeppelin was always the band that everyone would always talk. So I remember Zeppelin from a little kid. Zeppelin. And if you know me, Tom, you know that I always have to have these like annoying bands that I don't want to like. Like I told you, like Metallica. I don't want to like them. But they're so popular and they're so in your round and so in your face that you have to listen to their music. And then you reluctantly like them. You're like, fuck, I do like them. The same was with Zeppelin way back when. And so when I first started, I'm like, well, I'm going to learn this shit. Well, what's the easiest one to learn? Zeppelin IV, right? You already know 3 of the songs automatically. Everybody knows the 3 songs: Rock and Roll, Black Dog, and Stairway to Heaven. So I started with that. I had my cassette that I bought in Greece. And as they do with a lot of European Zeppelin stuff, some tracks are reversed. So 4 Sticks is song number 3. And Battle of Evermore replaces it on the second side. So I listened to this. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wow, this Misty Mountain Hop thing is din, 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 din. Like, that's pretty cool. Oh, shit. This Levee breaks. What the fuck? I feel like I'm in an earthquake. What is this music? And then you pick up on everything else. And then you start exploring the rest of the Zeppelin albums. Like, these guys had it right. Whoever was talking to Zeppelin, this is something completely different than every other band that's out there that existed in hard rock genre type of music. What's that part in Fast Time at Ridgemont High? What do they talk about?
Oh, they screw it up. We say always play the side 2 of Zeppelin IV, and it cuts to the scene. He's listening to Kashmir.
I played Zeppelin IV side 2 the first time I had sex.
Now, did you play the real side 2, or did you do it fucking
side 2? I put it on the tape deck. I was in my basement, you know, the Winter Street prop house.
Yep.
I was in the summer of going into my freshman year, and there was this girl that I heard she was slutty.
Oh, here we go.
So I bring her to my house just as I finish. Literally, I hear
15 seconds.
Pick her up, grab her stuff, fucking have her exit out of the back door from the basement, and didn't get caught.
And this all was in before the second verse kicked in Misty Mountain Hop. It was that quick.
Dude. I love to tell people this story in the sense
put it this way: the vocals didn't begin in Stairway to Heaven yet by the time he was done.
As typical guy of that time frame in that point in your life, at no point in my head was it ever a thought of, is she enjoying this? It was, holy shit, I can't believe I'm having sex. I can't believe I just had sex.
Is this the Zeus Chronicles or the Zeppelin
like
Chronicles?
7 seconds.
I feel a lot closer to Zeus than I ever have before right now.
Unbelievable.
Welcome, new listeners.
Yeah, and I got to listen to it all with Zeppelin IV, so it has a little special place. Although I'm embarrassed, like, oh my God, what was I thinking? But Zeppelin IV has a musically life-altering impact on my life, and it's remained there.
Do you guys think that because of our love for this album and because of how many times we've played it over the years, that it's affected how we view it? Because when I go
absolutely,
because when I go back and like listen to this album, it's been a long time since I listened to this album all the way through. Where I've listened to Physical Graffiti, I listened to House of the Holy, Led Zeppelin II, Led Zeppelin III. You know, I listen to those albums more frequently because I already understand and know the greatness of Led Zeppelin IV. And then when I'm re-listening to this for this episode, I'm like, yeah, this album was fucking great. You know, like, this is incredible. Like, and I think we forget about that because we kind of take it for granted because of all the times we listen to it and how much enjoyment, whether it's Zeus losing his virginity to it, or wherever our, whatever memories we have with the album, it just seems like it's just, and it's kind of like, and we'll talk about Stairway to Heaven eventually. It's almost like Stairway to Heaven is that song that we take for granted too, because of how great it is. We just kind of skip over it because we've heard it so many times.
Yeah, I think Zeus and I, we talk about this a lot, and it's that fatigue factor. And you have to be careful when you're reviewing an album. And we'll get into it, obviously, as we get into the track by track and final thoughts. But you have to, it's difficult to put fatigue to the side at times and put on a different mindset and say, okay, I know I've heard this album since I was friggin' 8 years old, but I want to listen to this differently. Can I do that? Can I listen to this without being like, yeah, okay, I know this. Oh yeah, rock and roll. I know how that goes. And it wasn't that easy for me to do. I mean, I'll get into it a little bit more, but the fatigue factor is, but again, we always say fatigue factor exists because when something is that good, you listen to it that much.
And so does everyone else.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. The thing is, I think we penalize Zeppelin IV because of it.
Yes.
So,
agreed.
And it's almost when we start thinking greatest songs, greatest albums, greatest stuff, greatest impact in your life, you're like, yeah, we all know Zeppelin IV. Yeah, Zeppelin IV. Yeah. Like it's so as though when you're even talking about Zeppelin, and it's not cool to say Zeppelin IV is the best album. It's not cool to say Stairway to Heaven's the best album, the song they've ever done. You got to pick something else because you're just a sheep if you pick that.
Well,
but
without giving
a reason why everybody picks them.
Yeah, without giving anything away on a future episode that hasn't dropped yet. Zeus and I did a Dorm Damage episode about music, and I won't give anything away, but Zeppelin may or may not have been involved in there's certain things. Like you said, it's like, I'm not going to put Zeppelin. Everybody knows Zeppelin, so I'm going to keep them off the list. And then you think about it, like, well, that makes no sense. If they're that good, why aren't they on your list? And I'm guilty of that too. I do that all the time. Like Zeus just said, it's like I don't need to put Zeppelin on this list of best whatever because everybody knows that they're the best whatever,
So when you have a conversation with somebody you just meet about Zeppelin IV, like a Zeppelin, you try to stay away from Zeppelin IV.
Because it's cliche almost
Zeppelin.
now. Yeah.
And if they say Zeppelin IV is my favorite album, you're like, oh, let me guess. You like Black Dog.
Yeah.
You're almost penalizing the person for saying something about this incredible album.
It's actually the same thing in Kiss world when people say, Destroy is my favorite album. Oh, really? Okay, great.
I like Detroit Rock City. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Right.
And you think like they've never heard in any other song. That's
right.
Your mind goes to it because it is just so accessible, this album and these songs.
Yep.
But before we get to those, let's talk about the album cover. Jay, why don't you lead us off?
This was the most interesting thing about this album when I first picked it up, because here's this band that had been growing and growing in popularity prior to Led Zeppelin IV. Like I said in the beginning, Zeppelin IV set them on a path that few bands have ever seen. But to have the balls to release an album without their name on it, without a title of the album, with just this picture of this man in a field with straw and all this stuff, and you have 4 symbols, right, that no one knows what the hell they are, and people got to figure out. And again, I think that's what adds to the lore and mystique and mystery of Zeppelin, and they do it so well, and they continue to do it so well. They provide you with mystery that they're able to tap into something in your mind that makes you curious, makes you want more, makes you want to find out why they're doing what they're doing. And I think, to be honest with you, obviously the music is so important as to why they are who they are and why we think of Zeppelin as the greatest band of all time. But I also think we can't dismiss the mystery of the band that helps propel that and keeps that going. Jesus, how many decades later, right? I mean, they don't release things every year or every 6 months. They're not in your face on social media. They're not doing a lot of different interviews. They're all doing different things. But when Zeppelin releases a picture book or a box set or an anniversary edition, like, people go out in droves and buy it because they have that ability to stop time, and they have that ability to make you want it. And I think this is kind of the beginning of that, when they finally figured it out, like how to keep their audience captivated. And it's with this album and the album cover and the 4 symbols that became synonymous with who they were. I mean, it's in everything after this, right? And the song remains the same. They had each member had their own little bit in the movie, and they kind of wrapped it around the symbols that were first, seen on this album. So it's an odd cover, but again, it's interesting. It's different. When you think about what all the bands were doing at that time, Zeppelin always walked to a different beat. And I think that helped them create this masterful mystique about them that no band has been able to touch ever. I was having this conversation with someone a couple weeks ago about Zeppelin, because who would have thought when they finished in 1979 that they would be more popular today than they were during their prime, during their peak, when they were actually making music. And it's part of the fact that they don't give us a lot. They give us what we need when we need it, not just to give us stuff and be oversaturated in excess with it. And when they put this album out, I always love it when you see their discography, or when we used to see that back in the day, or when people would talk about Zeppelin albums, it would be called Untitled, not Led Zeppelin IV. It would be Led Zeppelin Untitled, which to me just blows my mind that a band would have the balls and guts to do that. The album cover makes you stare at it to try to figure out what the fuck this is. It's so powerful. It really is. Out of all the albums that they had before, you could say Led Zeppelin 1 with the iconic picture on the cover, the brown bomber with Zeppelin 2, and the kind of carnival thing on Led Zeppelin 3. This album, you can stare at it for hours and still not figure it out, which is so interesting in itself.
Yeah, and I think what is interesting is that the whole idea behind it was kind of a FU to the album. I think it was a combination of Jimmy and Peter Grant. But 1987, when I go to buy the album, you're not looking for Led Zeppelin IV. You're just looking for that picture, and it. And they knew at the time that their fans were going to buy that album. They were going to find a way to get it. But it is interesting how if you were to show that picture to random people, like they're going to say, "Oh, that's the album cover to Led Zeppelin IV," and it's one of the most recognizable album covers in history. And it was all done with the intent of, just kind of making a dig to the company. I think it's. I mean, I wouldn't say I would go down to the depths of, you could spend hours looking at it. It's just, I'm actually surprised that in this time, 2023 with, podcasts and documentaries, like, who's that painting of? Was that a real person? Is it a painting or was it a picture? And that's actually one of the mysteries that I have, is that, that wasn't the intent, but you still have questions and, in awe of this album 52 years later.
Yeah, Murph, you touched on it about how Page was, because of the kickback that they got on Zeppelin III about, oh, you guys, you went all folky and acousticy and you did this and that. And Page was just like, well, go screw, we're going to do this. I mean, I have the vinyl right here, and even on the spine, there's nothing. There's not even like a code or anything. And the record company was just like, you can't do this. You can't release this album with no wording on it. And Jimmy Page was like, he was to the point where he held on to the master tapes of Led Zeppelin IV. He's like, you will not release this album unless you do what I want. This is how it's going to be released. This is what the cover is going to be. It's going to be completely blank. There's going to be no words. And if you don't agree to it, we won't release the album. And the record company finally had to relinquish that and be like, if you're going to hold us over a barrel, fine. But in terms of the artwork, let's talk about that briefly. The little picture of the guy with the sticks. It's a 19th century painting that Robert Plant got at a little antique shop, and it was put on the inside of like a demolished building from a tower in Birmingham. And Jimmy Page says that, of course, everything has to have a story. Jimmy Page is like, oh, it's supposed to bring out the city country flavor, the up against each other. You know, you got a country and up against a demolished building. Who knows what that painting is? But it's, even if you're not a Zeppelin fan, even if you've never owned this album or listened to it, you know what it is. And when you look at the back of the cover, that's when you can see the background of the towers and the partially demolished wall. And then we can get into the gatefold, you know, in a minute. And obviously we'll get into the symbols too, Zeus.
Yeah. So the thing that I like to think about is this isn't during the internet age. This isn't something that's going to go viral, that someone's going to pick up. Oh, like, oh yeah, the Zeppelin album has this. They just put it out there. So think about this. How many people during the 70s went to the record store and just, or were at a record store and didn't know that was Zeppelin IV? Right?
There's no way to know.
They didn't purchase it. They lost sales probably because no one knew, oh, that's Led Zeppelin IV.
Right. There's no way to know.
Someone had a sign, record store probably said it. So people they lost probably money on that, the fact that they did it, and they wanted to be, oh, we don't want to have our name on it or anything like that.
I guess an interesting question. I don't mean to interrupt you real quick, but like, even did the record store know it was, how did they know to file it under L? Did they know? You know what I mean? I wonder if
I would hope they would put it, probably because Zeppelin's such a big seller, like new Zeppelin album and put underneath or something. Right. But I'm sure people walked in just like other people, like, what the fuck is The Elder? What is this?
Well, at least I'd said Kiss on it though, but still.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? I'm saying without the image, like, in the name, you're like, what the hell is this? But the funny thing is, now you talked a little bit about the album and the painting of the old man. So people are trying to figure out who's the old man. Yeah. So some have kind of speculated that the tarot photo of the hermit, right, this guy, is actually him in his living form on the cover.
Oh, okay. So when you open up the gatefold, that famous picture of the guy holding the lantern and the candle standing on the mountaintop. Yeah,
the tarot card guy.
Yep.
The hermit.
Yep.
That may have been him
living
in human form.
Okay. Fair.
Now, there is another, like, I mean, it's Zeppelin, so you can go down these rabbit holes. There's another story that this is a guy named Brusher Mills, who was like this British guy. I don't know. He like fucking lived in it was like a snake charm guy, snake oil sale. I don't know. He used to fucking fight snakes and lived in the woods. And there's pictures, and he became like some folklore hero. And there's photos of him, and it kind of looks like him. But other than somebody fucking making, hey, I think that's him, there's no reference to him or at all or anything like that, or that's what this painting is. So I don't know who the guy is, but those are some of the rumors out there. The other part of this, I think, Tom, you may have touched on this, supposedly because I have the CD, but if you opened up the album, this is a wall of a damaged house. Yep. And in the background, you can see like this tower and other stuff. So this is like a long forgotten home, maybe. And this is an old photo of, and so maybe there's a sentimental feeling to it, like demolished home and old past. And then this old photo on this with the frame that's all jagged on this jaggedy wall that's all banged up, and a house that's fallen, dilapidated. It gives it a different feeling. I don't know. But, there's also the part where they have the Stairway to Heaven lyrics, right?
Yes. Well, it's funny, real quick. Everybody talks about the symbols. The symbols are found on the inside on the liner notes. Like, they're not on the cover. They're not on the gatefold.
Right.
Yeah. And they each have their own little symbols. Supposedly, what everyone calls Jimmy's thing is Zoso.
Yep.
He's said in interviews, like, that's not even a word. It's not meant to be a word.
Right.
Like, so who knows what the fuck these things are? They came up with symbols. They stole the 4 symbols from us, Kiss.
Exactly.
But they have these imagery. Now they've got this more lore about them. Ooh, now they're the symbol. Now, what do the symbols mean? Who's this gone? You know, all this other stuff. Oh, one like final thing before I forget, someone also mentioned that could have been Aleister Crowley. It's not. It doesn't look.
It's not him. It's not him.
Yeah. So that was another one that they may have been him. But regardless, there's more of that devil mystery. Now you got 4 mysterious symbols on the album, right? What do they mean? What are they? Who they represent and all that. Now you want to know this shit. You're fascinated by this band who's got this mystery, this cloud all around them. And this album adds to it. The cover does, at least for most people.
Zeus, do you think, we're obviously having these conversations, discussions now in 2023. Do you think, or Jay, since I know you've got just all the knowledge of it, back in 71, I mean, was it just, hey, we're sending it out, people bought the album, and then over time, people started kind of questioning and looking and analyzing it in a different way, or were these questions coming up in the moment back in the day?
Oh, I believe absolutely they were back in the day. Yeah. Oh, yeah. People were talking about, like, what the fuck does this mean? All the devil stuff. What is this symbols? Where do they go? And then, then Page started putting it on his pants, the Zoso. Bonham had it on his drum set, the bass drum set. Robert had it on I think it was on what do you call it? A speaker. And then on the piano that John Paul Jones had, his symbol was there. So these things are there, and I think it just led to the lore. I mean, people were talking about Zeppelin and the whole, crossroads, selling your soul to the devil way back when. This didn't quell that. This probably added to it.
Absolutely. When you think of the song Stairway to Heaven, and I think this album, more so than any other album that they did, was part of the people, the religious conservatives saying Zeppelin is satanic. They heard Page bought Aleister Crowley's house, the mansion in the UK and everything. And there's a video clip on YouTube that you can find. I think it's from the late 70s or some point in the 70s, where this preacher is on this talk show host, like somewhere in the South, playing Stairway to Heaven backwards. And he's like, you can hear them say hell. You can hear them say hell in that and everything. And it again, purposeful or not, I don't know. Probably it was. They wanted to create that sense of danger, that sense of mystery. And I think it all started with this album. And then when you think of Peter Grant and you think of what Tom said earlier about Jimmy Page hanging on to the masters and not releasing it to the record company, this is really what created Zeppelin and how they packaged music after this. Mm-hmm. You think of all the way through In Through the Outdoor, releasing an album in a brown paper bag. Like no, or
that's actually, probably because it belonged in a brown paper bag, but we'll save that when we review that album.
It kind of started with the Pinwheel with Led Zeppelin III.
Yeah.
But Led Zeppelin IV was, brought it all to another level. And Peter Grant, which was also, which was their manager at the time, who was also known as a gangster, put the fear of God into record labels. And, he walked in and you did what Peter said, or else you'd freaking probably have a bat to the head, probably, So it was, the whole dynamic really took center stage with this album, and a lot of things behind the music, with the artwork, with the symbols, with the way that they were, kind of, I'll say it, manipulating the record label at the same time. I mean, keep being the head of Atlantic Records when one of your biggest artists comes to you and says, yeah, we're going to release it without our name, without a title, just release it. I mean, you'd be like, what the fuck you think we're going to do here? And it was the right call. It absolutely was the right call.
Yeah, real quick, let's just kind of go through what they mean, like briefly. So the Zoso thing, like Zeus said, it's not even a word. It's supposed to, there's a couple different things where the Z is not really a letter. It's an alchemic thing, and that the OSO is actually a version of 666. There's been versions of that. Could say it represents Saturn. Of course, Page's symbol is the one that's most mystical and confusing. John Paul Jones it's supposed to symbolize a person who has both confidence and competence. Bonham's symbol is the mother, father, child, which is also kind of funny because it's kind of the Ballantine beer symbol. They were kind of joking about that because everybody knows Bonham liked to booze. Plants was a feather within a circle. He actually designed that himself, and that's another kind of weird kind of whatever. But they just become iconic. And like we mentioned, you got bottom cymbals on his drum head, and you got everybody wearing them, and they're just celebrated. They're T-shirts and stickers and whatever. It's part of the legend.
Yeah. One last thing about the album is Jay mentioned it briefly. Most people refer to this as Zeppelin IV. The band is always referred to, our fourth album. And it's gone by Zoso. I think it was Untitled, and then Runes or something like that too, as well.
There was a weird fit. Yeah, it's always been Zeppelin IV. I have never called it. Hey, have you heard the new Untitled album? No one says that. Who says that?
Yeah, if you're gonna do a self-titled album, it should be your debut. After that, fuck you. No offense.
Well, I think the other thing too is just because they had the previous two albums, 2 and 3, people just went with 4. I mean, it was maybe just understood or assumed that, okay, they didn't put a title on it because the last one was 3. This is 4.
Well, it's funny too, because when you talk about, I'm sorry, Jay, real quick. When you talk about albums that have untitled or self-titled albums that aren't a debut, I know for us, we're Pearl Jam fans. They released a self-titled album with the avocado on the front. And I know for me, sometimes we're talking like, oh yeah, the one with the avocado on it. Like, I don't say Pearl Jam self-titled. Like there's always a way, because I'll be honest with you, I don't even know what number album that Pearl Jam album is. But this has always been Zeppelin IV because it's the 4th album. I mean, it's never been confusing to me, at least. But
yeah, and they're not writing 4; they're just putting 4 symbols, so that means Zeppelin IV.
Exactly.
I think it's just the natural progression, like Murph said, calling it Zeppelin IV, because you can't sit along with your friends around a bonfire, drinking beer, smoking whatever, going Led Zeppelin Untitled.
Yeah,
far and away the best album that they've done. I mean, just Untitled just doesn't sound right,
right.
to the ears. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of just that. Yeah, it's Led Zeppelin IV, and we call it something different than the band calls it, basically.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into some quick facts about the album. It was released November 8th, 1971. They were at Headley Grange when they recorded this one. The Rolling Stones mobile unit again did some of the mixing and stuff all over the place. You got a Headley, the Island Studios, Sunset Sound in L.A. Again, they used Andy Johns, I think, as one of the engineers. The album itself did not go to number 1, which is insane. It only went to number 2. Probably stayed on the charts for a gazillion years. It has sold 24 million copies, 24 times platinum, which is insane. Some of the accolades this album has received.
Oh, geez, yeah.
100. I mean, I could probably do this all day, but 100 greatest albums ever made by Mojo, number 24, Grammy Hall of Fame award, album of the millennium, number 2, 100 greatest rock albums ever, number 1 by Classic Rock, 500 greatest albums ever. Rolling Stone had it 58. Pitchfork top 100 albums in 1970s, number 7. It's just 100 greatest British rock albums ever, Classic Rock, number 1. It's in the definitive 200 top 200 albums of all time, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, number 4. We could do this all day.
Yeah. There's some interesting little factoid here with Jimmy Page. After the album was like mixed and put together, the band hated it so much that Page remixed the entire album. And then I thought this was interesting too. There was more delays over what the cover was going to be. There were more delays over whether it was going to be a double album. And there was more delays about suggesting that it could be released as a set of EPs. Imagine if they did that. Imagine like, here's our 4th album. Here's 8 45s. Good luck.
Yeah, I mean, this EP has Battle of Evermore and 4 sticks on it.
Oh, good. Well, I could use a new coaster, so that'd be fine. Yeah, exactly.
But the other aspect of it, they had 3 songs that ends up going on on albums in the future. Down by the Seaside, Night Flight, and Boogie with Stu, who is Ian Stewart who was a kind of like a de facto member of the Rolling Stones, plays piano on one of the songs on Rock and Roll here, and ends up becoming the name of the title song for Boogie with Stu, which ends up on Physical Graffiti with Night Flight and Down by the Seaside. So those 3 songs weren't on it. So I assume that's what they were thinking about if they were trying to do a double album, add those songs in there as well.
And they also recorded an early version of No Quarter while they were making Led Zeppelin IV, which obviously wouldn't come out until later, obviously.
Yeah. So those are some of the facts about Zeppelin IV. Let's get right into the songs. First song, Black Dog.
Like I said in the beginning, guys, Black Dog was really my first introduction to Zeppelin. Driving around, coming back from holiday parties with my family or wherever we were going. This song was pretty much, this and Stairway to Heaven were the 2 constant Zeppelin songs played on the radio. And this is going back probably early 80s, 81, 82, 83, that this song was pretty prevalent in my life. And it was just a lot different than anything I had heard before, because as I've talked with people over time and just read just the uniqueness of the sound of this song, because it's one of the toughest songs for the band to play live, just because the way the guitar lays over the drums and the way what the drum beat is, it's very hard to keep time. And that's kind of the mastermind behind Bonham, that he could do this. And Bonham was that drummer that in most cases they played to, with the bass, Bonham played to Page, and doing that and having 2 different spectrums of what's going on with the song. And then you've got Plant with this British blues voice that sounds like he's from the Delta in Mississippi, Louisiana. Just is masterful. It's a very unique song. It's a very different than I was, like I said, used to at that time. And I don't think I've ever gotten, or I've ever found the song in any sense of normalcy. It's always still to this day intriguing to me because of what's happening with the song and what's going on with it.
Yeah, Jay, you mentioned it earlier. This song here, I've actually seen online where people that haven't heard Led Zeppelin before are introduced to this song, and their reaction to it probably was the reaction I had when I first listened to it. So I always talked about new Stairway to Heaven, bought the album, and whereas Zeppelin 1, 2, and 3 each start with this hard guitar riff right out of the gate, this one here starts with Hey Hey Mama. And if you're popping in the album for the first time, it's a different approach. Not knowing at the time, but understanding now, their big influence from the blues, that the lyrics, this is a bluesy type song, but it just shows how the band has evolved and matured, where it doesn't sound like their earlier stuff. And I remember as a kid laying in bed listening to it, just the I was like, Plant makes it sound good. Just the whole song, how it goes back and forth with, I thought it was just going to be Plant heavy, and then boom, the music jumps in and it's back and forth. And it's almost like they gave each other their own space. And then at the end, I love the outro of what Page does at the end, but always liked how this album started off with a song that just grabbed my attention right away.
Arguably one of the greatest openers, not just for Zeppelin, but for any band. And I think the thing I take away from this, I think starting with this song, I think it's Page's way of just saying a big F you to everybody who thought they had softened on Zeppelin III with all the acoustic. Be like, no, we're back. We're Zeppelin. Talk rock at its finest right here with this song. The lyrics are not confusing at all. Jay hinted at the complicated riff, and I was happy to hear that the band acknowledged this, because I was always like kind of like confused and frustrated. I'm like, does the band know that there's a little time fuck up right there? Like, do they know that? And when I watched a documentary on this and I was doing some research, and the riff is so complicated with the timing of it that the only way that Bonham could keep up with it was just to not break stride with his drum beat, because the riff would eventually come back into sync. So if you listen to it very closely, it doesn't jive musically or harmoniously, and then it swings back around, and then the drums and the guitar catch up. But again, that's just the brilliance of them. And this whole type of song with the call and response, I'm a huge Cult fan. The Cult did this song, a song called Automatic Blues on Sonic Temple. They did this. Sounds great. It's obviously not Black Dog. I know Kiss tried to touch this a little bit with Radar for Love off of Asylum. We always be like, oh yeah, that's their Black Dog. But I mean, the song is it's just fucking legendary. And
Crying in the Rain.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Exactly. White Snake.
Still the Night.
Yep.
Those two songs, the call and response.
One last thing too. At the very beginning of the song, you hear that kind of interference or whatever, that feedback from the amp. I'm telling you, go back and this is just me. Every time I hear that effect, that sound, maybe because the name of the song is Black Dog, to me, it sounds like a dog panting. Thank you, Murph. Okay. Yep. Okay. And I always thought that that's what it was, but it's not. It just works.
And it's another example of a song where no reference to the title anywhere in the lyrics.
Never. Nope.
Black Dog is written by Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, and John Paul Jones. The song's reference is to a dog that hung around Headley Grange during the recording. And they said it's influenced by a song by Fleetwood Mac, Oh Well. I listened to it. I get the point, what they're trying to say.
Yes.
This is like, it's so funny when you think of Fleetwood Mac, you're thinking, you can go your own way, like shit like that.
That's badass Fleetwood Mac.
Early Fleetwood Mac is nothing like that shit.
Oh, well, is like a badass song.
Yeah. It's like, you're like, what the fuck band is this? Yeah. You're like, that's not a fucking Lindsey Buckingham. Anyways, Black Dog, to me, it's just, again, it's you mentioned it earlier, Tom. You said something about, you try to get the fatigue out of your head, but it's very fatigued for me. I'm so used to it. I've heard it a million times. The point of it too is one point I'm trying to make is I've heard so many other people copy it that you forget this is the original. Like this type of call and response type of song. The vocalist has this awesome line, then the band comes in, and then it stops, and the vocalist, and then the band. This is the original, right? And this is the one that really stood out. Just even the lyrics. Spent my money, took my car, started telling her friends you're gonna be. We all know them. We all know. We have the feel like we know everything, every word, every line is iconic. Because we've heard it a million times. Who hasn't tried to belt these songs out and these lines in that Robert Plant falsetto?
Yep.
Everybody does.
Everybody.
It's so cliche, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A big leg woman ain't got no soul. Dun, 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 dun. Like, it's so ingrained in your music brain that it comes second nature. The guitar, of course, is insane. John Bonham is just in a league of his own. He's the only drummer that I like his the drumming is an instrument that I enjoy. It's not just there to keep the beat and keep everybody else in place. It's its own instrument. And he's just so, for me, way ahead of any drummer I've ever listened to. And he makes this thing work. The bass is incredible too. The JPJ, who is fantastic throughout this whole album as well. But these lyrics, we all know them. It's an incredible song that kicks off an album. Like, think about it. What's the opening track on the first album that changed really music?
Yeah.
Good Times, Bad Times, right?
Bad Times. That's right.
What's the next one? Album opener? Whole Lot of Love.
That's right.
What's the next one? Immigrant Song. What's this one? They fucking kick you in the nuts with every opening track that you're like, I don't want to put it. This isn't By Myself by Peter Criss, Out of Control. This is Black Dog opening up an album.
Yep.
So,
And one other thing also is that, with it being so documented of how Plant over the years has tried to distance himself and recreate himself from the Zeppelin brand, that for his solo album in '88, having this riff on Tall Cool One, that I thought that this song had to mean something to him to include that in his solo career.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the Black Dog actually was released as a single. Did you know it went up to number 15? It's on Rolling Stone's list of 500 greatest songs at 294. Guitar, riff of the millennium. It went to number 7. Classic rock, top 50 classic rock songs of all time, number 18. Just where do you go with?
But it is one of those. But it is, for me personally, it is one of those songs where, is there fatigue? Yes, but it's a good kind of fatigue because I still fucking love it. It just rips.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the next track.
Rock and roll. I mean, if we just talked about opening tracks, when you listen to rock and roll compared to Black Dog, obviously there's no right or wrong on this, but you would make the case, or you can make the argument, that rock and roll would have been probably the one to open up an album, just by its subject matter, just by how they opened up shows with this song. It's a throwback to the days of Chuck Berry and those artists from that time period too. It's a very old school type of rock song that Zeppelin does. This song still is so powerful in just a rock and roll tune, a pure rock and roll song. So we just talked about, the opener of Black Dog, which, Zeus mentioned and said very, very true, that, it kicked you in the nuts. If they would have went with this song as an opener, it would have done the same thing. I mean, you've got two powerful songs at the top of their most iconic album, and that really does set the tone for the listener, because you're on a freaking journey right now. I mean, you're hearing Black Dog in a rock and roll. You are like primed and ready for Zeppelin by this point. And there's Take No Prisoners with these two songs. This song was either a closer for a lot of their tours. It was also an opener for many of their tours too, especially around this time. It's just, man, nothing gets me going in terms of Zeppelin quite like rock and roll. I could put this song on whenever. It'd be a year since I listened to it. I could listen to it on repeat all day, whatever, and it still sounds fresh. It still sounds great to me.
I know this is not probably going to make a lot of sense, but I've always viewed this as if Zeppelin's version of a pop song, that it is packaged and delivered very tight. There isn't a lot of improv in it, compared to what you see in some of their earlier albums. Absolutely understand where the influence is, where they were trying to kind of acknowledge as you said, Jay, Chuck Berry, Little Richard. I've always found this to be one of my favorites, just because it's simple, it's straightforward. This obviously has the piano element that you haven't seen previously. And, it's crossed over. You see it, before concerts that you see. Every time we go to see Kiss, that's going to come out there. And maybe that's where, I think a lot of people may say fatigue. But just going back to how I was introduced to this album, there's no way that you're not going to get sucked in by this song. And loved it the first time that I hear it, and I still don't get tired of it.
Well, here comes the hate mail for Zeppelin Chronicles. The way I feel about this song is very similar to the way I feel about Let Me Go Rock and Roll by Kiss. Jay's shaking his head, and I'll explain it to you.
I knew you were going to go there, because that's old school. It's not in their wheelhouse.
It's a band doing something that I don't want to hear from them. Is it done well? Yes. Rock and roll, great song, great drums, great riff. You can't turn away from it. But like Murph said, it's to me, Murph didn't use this word. Murph said pop song. He was kind. To me, it's cliche. It's them trying to do Chuck Berry and Jerry Lee Lewis. And I get it. They wanted to Americanize their sound. I get it. It's just not what I want to hear when I listen. When I listen as Led Zeppelin, I want to hear Black Dog. I want to hear Whole Lot of Love. I want to hear Immigrant Song. I want to hear, Going to California or what. I just don't want to hear this cookie cutter song. It's not bad. It's just not a song that I like. And the fatigue on this is the fatigue on this. I think the only time I enjoy this, and I'm glad Murph brought up, the only time I enjoy this is when they play it before the Kiss show, because that means the curtain's about to drop.
Tommy, this is why I wanted to go after you in this episode, so I could start off with the Jane, you ignorant slut.
Don't worry. There's more where this came from.
Yeah.
I mean, my question to you, Tom, is it cliche now? Because I don't think it was cliche in 1971.
Oh, that's fair. No, 50 years later, probably not. But I think back then it was. I think it was. Again, I don't have any proof of this, and research doesn't show this. I think it got in their heads that they were accused of a folky acoustic band after Zeppelin III. And they were like, no, we're not. Look, we can make a song called Rock and Roll. Look, it sounds like Chuck Berry. Look, we can kick ass. We can have, that's just me. Again, it's not a bad song. It's well crafted. When they perform it live, it absolutely rips. But it's just not what I want from Zeppelin. It's just that simple.
I disagree because of this.
Okay.
I don't think Zeppelin ever did anything on any album to appease a fan base. I don't think they did. I never thought. I can't see Page and John Paul Jones, Bonham and Plant sitting in the studio. Well, we got to write something because the fans were upset with us because of Led Zeppelin III.
Oh, I can.
I don't think that ever factors into their creative process and thinking.
Look at the album cover. They didn't give a fuck.
Musicians are proud people. They did not like the feedback from Zeppelin III.
I think this song stems from when you hear their bootlegs and you hear the medley during Dazed and Confused and the medleys during Whole Lot of Love, how they did Little Richard songs, how they did blues numbers, how they did, rock and roll songs. I think they wanted to encompass something that they were known for live on an album because, obviously they're known for their blues and their blues background. But when you listen to some of those medleys, I mean, they go from everywhere from a Little Richard song to a Buffalo Springfield song to a blues number too as well. So I think that this was a tribute to what they were about during those live performances and sequences. I think that's where the genesis of this song came from.
Well, to quote Ron Burgundy, I don't like it.
Sonny Picking suddenly entered in our Zeppelin Chronicles.
Rock and Roll. It was written by all four members: Plant, Page, Bonham, and Jones. It went to number 47 on the charts. So why I know Tom doesn't like it, and he's true to his opinion, because I know that's what he says. The same thing about Let Me Go Rock and Roll, which is the old school kind of rock and roll type of song. And Kiss and Zeppelin really don't do other songs other than these two songs. So I get it. However, I will say this. The song supposedly came out of a jam when they were finishing up Four Sticks. Yes. Now, if you're a Little Richard fan, you know exactly the beginning is the exact beginning of Keep on Knocking. Mm-hmm. That is Keep on Knocking, which is one of the most interesting songs in history because it's about fucking in the ass. It's about anal sex. Keep on knocking, but you can't come in. Keep on knocking, but you can't come in.
Like nothing to lose.
Keep on knocking, but you can't come in. Come back tomorrow morning and try again. Fucking dirtiest bastard. Just like Tutti Frutti was Loose Booty original. I can hear that drum, and Bonham probably doing that. And Jimmy, they love that old R&B music, original rock and roll stuff. You're not going to find a bigger Elvis fan than Robert Plant. So he probably picked up and started doing some Chuck Berry, guitar over that Little Richard drumming. Hence one of the greatest Led Zeppelin songs of all time. This song, there have been times I've been fatigued of it, but you hear it and you're just still like, it's fun. Just the at the guitar solo at the end, and then all of a sudden you hear Bonham come in with the cymbals, and then he goes right back into oh my God, it is so fucking fun. I can only imagine what it would be like to be on stage playing that during a concert in Zeppelin, and how much joy they would probably, it's just a loose, fun, kick-ass, hard rockin', old-time rock and roll song. And they fucking hit it out of the park. I think it's fantastic. Kudos to them for coming up with it. But in addition to that, I think, Murph, in one sense, I know you say it's popish, but I find it to be more, the word is accessible. Tom likes to use that word. This song is very accessible to non-Led Zeppelin people that are turned off by some of their other stuff.
Crossover.
Which you just made my point.
So I don't know if they purposely, but I don't think they were like, we need a song to get on the radio, or we need a song to cross over. I think this song just works that way.
Put it this way. I'm being one of those people that I hate to be. I'm like gatekeeping Led Zeppelin. I don't want you liking Led Zeppelin because you like rock and roll.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, which is how we started the show.
I know.
I like Led Zeppelin, Black Dog, rock and roll, Stairway to Heaven. Like,
nerd.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, you have to like hats off to Roy Hopper if you're a real Zeppelin fan.
Yeah. That's a song you would not call accessible. But regardless, the song just kicks ass. Rolling Stone has it as number 9 of their 40th greatest Led Zeppelin songs. Some more accolades. The VH100 greatest rock and roll songs of all time, number 66. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's 500 songs that shaped rock and roll. It's in there listed. And it was the advertising. Do you remember this for the Cadillac?
Yep.
In 2001.
Yep.
And in 2002, the advertising campaign increased Cadillac sales by 16%. That's fucking insane.
Can you imagine being like, you know what? I was going to buy a Honda, but I heard Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin, and now I'm going to buy a Coupe de Ville. Like,
first it makes it sound cooler, like Cadillac, but you know that, that rock and roll song, and the word, and then Cadillac, you start coming synonymous with it, and so like it's branding, and Cadillac stays in your head.
I've driven a Cadillac. I've driven a Cadillac hundreds of times, thousands of times. Okay, Jack Kloppus.
All right. Track number 3.
Battle of Evermore, a historic lesson from Led Zeppelin, right? This is so different than really anything they've done in terms of the subject matter, in terms of the way the song is presented. It features, the first female singer, or I think the only female singer on a Led Zeppelin track, Sandy Denny, who was the
only non-Zeppelin member to sing on an L Zeppelin.
Only non. Yeah. I think she was a folk singer at the time, but the song is about, I think it's the Scottish War, the Scottish Independence War, the Battle of Evermore. Which, if you're living in the UK, I'm sure you're pretty well equipped on what this war meant to the development of that region of the world. And you go from Black Dog, this heavy blues song, to rock and roll, this rock and roll anthem, to this song that's, like, what is this? Like, I understand, but that again is what makes Zeppelin who they are, is because they're able to change and do so many different things, and they're so diverse, they're so layered, they're so deep. It's not one of my favorite songs in their catalog. I've grown to appreciate it more over time, but I'll stay with that word appreciation. I do appreciate what they were trying to do with this song and kind of break the mold of what they were doing on this album. Because what do you follow up with Black Dog and Rock and Roll as a 1-2 punch? You follow it up with a folk song about a war in the UK, as Plant is more kind of almost in a speaking voice instead of singing. there's parts where he does belt out some things, but he's got more of a talking voice in his singing rather than what we're used to from him. So it's an interesting song. The album has so much greatness with it that it's almost unfair to put this song on this album, in the sense that it's going to get overshadowed by pretty much everything else on this. Like, if you're a kid and you're my age, in high school, you're hearing Black Dog, you're hearing rock and roll, Stairway to Heaven's coming up, you're skipping this song. You're fast forwarding it, and it's a great it's a great song in terms of just the subject matter and the structure and everything, but you want to get from Black Dog to rock and roll to Stairway as quickly as possible. And this is holding up the game, so to speak. But I do appreciate what they were trying to do. Battle Evermore, again, not one of my favorites in their catalog, but definitely a Zeppelin type of song where they stretch themselves and show their diverse selection of music.
I was surprised in the moment when I heard this for the first time. I liked it. I think part of it was, I'm pretty sure it was the first song I ever listened to that had a mandolin. So it was a sound that was new to me and very distinct. Jay, to your point, it almost seems like with Plant, talking, he was leaving it to Sandy Denny to, she was going to hit the notes that he normally would cover in a song. But something you just said connected with me big time, because I liked the song in the moment, but when I was playing it over and over again, this album on cassette, I would be forwarding on a tape, and it would there's still more. Oh, there's still more. Like it, the song goes on for a bit, and I always remember that I probably listened to this song hundreds of times, but those last 30 to 45 seconds in the mandolin, to me, almost feels like it's the intro to Led Zeppelin IV, because it was like, all right, I'm going to skip after rock and roll, go through Battle of Evermore, go into Stairway to Heaven. And I just would go like, all right, I would forward too far, I'd be into Stairway to Heaven. Then I'd have to rewind back. So the mandolin is what kind of sticks in my memory more than anything else. But it's, my feeling, it's the most unique song in their catalog, because it's the only song with a different singer and a female to boot. But I liked it.
You guys are being way too nice. It's okay to say this song sucks. It's okay, Jay. It's not good. It's not good. And the biggest problem is it's almost 6 minutes long. Oh my God. I can't get, I'll tell you, here's a little secret. We've been listening to this album our entire lives. The very first time I ever listened to all 5 minutes and 38 seconds of this song was preparing for this episode. I can't get through it. It's dissonant sounding. The music and Robert's vocal tone, Sandy Denny sounds wonderful. It's just too long and it doesn't go anywhere. I mean, I like folky stuff. I love what's on Zeppelin III, and they do folk again later on in this album and later on in their discography. For lack of a better word, this is like just a noisy song. And I just don't like what's going on. And it gets noisier. And if this was like 2.5 minutes or something, 3 minutes, okay. There is absolutely no reason on planet Earth for this thing to be pushing 6 minutes. None. There's just not. And I can't do it. Can't do it. Sorry. But Jay, you're right. I will give you credit for saying, I want to skip this because I want to get to Stairway to Heaven as fast as I can.
All right. Battle of Evermore. This is written by Paige Plant. Okay. I think the first time I really started listening to this song was when I bought the single soundtrack and realized,
yes. Yeah. Yes.
That's on Zeppelin IV. Wow, this is a pretty good version. I like the two sisters singing this song. Went back. The song has grown on me over the years. I like folk music. That mandolin, okay, maybe it's because I've listened to Greek music in my background of my life, my whole life. So it sounds very much like a bouzouki. So I'm used to that sound and I don't mind it. It's got a kind of, it's a mandolin. So, but I'm used to that kind of folksy kind of rhythm and acoustic sounding music. I like it. I don't know. It works. It grows on me. It's something different. This is what Zeppelin can do versus other bands. Robert does the narrator part of the song, and Sandy Duncan from fucking Peter Pan sings the town crier, representing the people. The back and forth from them is fantastic. Again, I didn't pick up on that too much until I started listening to the single soundtrack. And I always used to be like, why the fuck of all the songs of a Zeppelin fucking song are they doing Battle of Evermore? But it grew on me. I can't explain it. I think they did play this live a little bit. And now Robert does this with Alison Krauss on her when they toured together. And to me, it's a decent song. It's not bad, but it's not going to be like, oh, stop what you're doing. I need to listen to Battle Evermore to get psyched up for this game coming on. Like, it's nice. It works.
I think if this song was on Zeppelin III, I think it would have been appreciated more and worked a lot better. But like I said, when you put it between three behemoths of songs, Black Dog, Rock and Roll, Stairway to Heaven, you have that sandwiched in there. I think it almost does the song a disservice, because those three songs are so iconic. And you've got this song that you really, it's a totally different subject matter. It's an interesting subject matter. It's an interesting approach to Zeppelin, doing the song. I think it's nearly impossible for you to appreciate the song the way it's intended to be.
But it gives you like some breathing room.
Yeah.
We just fucking knocked your head off. Let's take it down a little notch before we really knock your fucking head off again. Let's get you in the mood. And then it kind of goes right into the soft beginning of the next track, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm ever going to introduce a bigger song ever on this podcast. And that's this song.
I mean, what can you say? This song, man, it's so powerful, even 30 plus years after first hearing it. And I want to preface it and say that I always get annoyed with music elitists that tell you that something's great and you need to like it. Right? We have, the contingency in Rolling Stone magazine and other publications and blogs where it's almost like there's this effort to make a song great that really doesn't deserve to be called great, or a band for that matter to be called great that really doesn't deserve to be called great.
Yeah.
I think this song here is pure greatness. There's nothing wrong with it. It's so perfect. We always talk about, at least when I describe an album or a song, I say it's near perfect, because to me, there's only less than a handful of perfect songs, and this is one of them. And there's a reason at one point this song was the most requested song on rock radio for not just a year, like for decades, right? This song means so much to people. As Plant would intro this song on live shows, it's a song of hope. And, it's got, the lyrics are a bit different from one, from one part to another, but it's kind of like a bunch of fables, told within this song about a different perspective, or to be kind of like peeling back the orange and having like a different perspective on things. This is really what I was referring to when I talked about Led Zeppelin IV as the fatigue factor, and how, as you mentioned, I think it was you, Zeus, that, when someone says their favorite song, Led Zeppelin, you kind of like dismiss them as a fair weather bandwagon fan. And it's such the wrong way to think. And I agree with your assessment on that, because
You mean Stairway to Heaven?
Yeah. And I, Stairway to Heaven is such a, when people say Stairway to Heaven is their favorite song, we always dismiss them, because it's like, everybody says that. Everybody, feels that, and that's the wrong way to think. And because it's so good and because it has been overplayed, right? It has. I mean, there's no doubt about it, but we shouldn't penalize a perfect song for being overplayed, because that's
not that, Jay, let me just cut you off for a second. It's not that I'm penalizing you. It's because it's such a given. We all know it's greatness.
Yeah, right.
You don't have anything else? Like, oh, you like that song? You're supposed to like that song. Oh, you like drinking water? Oh, okay.
I take care of my
out
kids.
on a limb there.
I take care of my kid. You're supposed to.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I think we're getting at with Stairway. Like, okay, we all know that. Put it aside. That doesn't count. What else do you like from Led Zeppelin? That's where I'm coming from.
Well, that's what really kind of spun. This and Kashmir is really what spawned my list of Zeppelin favorite songs. I have my favorite popular Zeppelin list, and I have my favorite deep track Zeppelin list. Because your street cred is questioned when you say your favorite song is Stairway to Heaven or Kashmir.
It's true.
It's so bad that we do that, but it's indicative of the greatness. I mean, this song all across the globe. You could play this in Chicago, Boston. You could play this in Pakistan. You could play this in wherever, in Europe and Australia and New Zealand, wherever. And this song resonates with people all over the globe. How many songs can say that they do that? Right? I mean, and as it kicks in with the drums, a little bit over midway through the song, Bonham comes in with his drums, and it just makes it almost like a completely different song. And then you go into the guitar solo, it's like a different change of the song. And then Plant's vocals come in, which is he delivers them differently than he has the whole song previous to this. It truly is a journey of a song. I mean, it really is. And I think that, people yawn when you mention Stairway to Heaven. Stop yawning. Appreciate that we are on the planet when this song exists, and how lucky we are to have this song to be able to listen to it anytime we want, because it is a perfect song.
Too bad they stole it.
Oh, there comes Murph.
What a jagbag.
I agree. I mean, you can't talk about the history of rock and roll without talking about this song. I mean, it's, the story. It's like, why didn't they put this on that satellite that's sent out in space? If it's found by other life beings of what life is like on Earth. I think it's the Rolling Stones. It's like, put this song on it. This is as good as it gets. And I think what's always been great about this song is that it's 8 minutes. It's as close to perfect as you can get. And you can appreciate it. They've got other stuff in their catalog that's 3 minutes. That's awesome. But this here, you capture it, savor it, enjoy every second of it. And, Tommy, as you mentioned earlier about the dances and what do you do? First girl I ever asked out on a date. Asked her during the guitar solo because I didn't know what else to do. Hey, do you want to go to Papagino's? So, but yeah, I think trying to analyze this anymore is a disservice. We all know how important and great this song is, and I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I'll just say simply, to me, it is arguably the greatest rock song ever written, and it could be right up there with arguably the greatest song ever written. The composition, the way it builds, the way it grows, the way it crescendos into the greatest guitar solo in history, lyrically, emotionally, vocally, it is a perfect 10 5-star song. We talk about fatigue. There is no fatigue for me with this. If it comes on shuffle, if it comes on satellite radio, if I occasionally seek it out on my own on Spotify, it is the song of all songs. And I think there's really not too much more that any of us can say other than Zeus's personal thoughts on it.
Stairway to Heaven, written by Page and Plant. Whew, wonder what those residuals are on that song, huh? Good Lord. Just that. It wasn't released as a single, but FM radio started putting it on. The accolades, I could go on for fucking days. So I will give you a few. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, top 500 songs that shaped rock and roll Hall of Fame. 10 of the best songs ever, classic rock UK, number 1. VH1 100 greatest rock songs of all time, number 3. Grammy Awards, Grammy Hall of Fame Award. Rolling Stone 500 greatest songs of all time, number 31. Guitar World 100 greatest solos, number 1. Rolling Stone 100 greatest guitar songs of all time, number 8. It is in a place of its own. The song, I think, is close to 8 minutes. There's not a second of it that's disposable. Every part of the song works. It's just the way it's supposed to be. That length. Not one little flute part that needs to be missing. Not one little extra Robert Moan, Jimmy guitar outro, drums by Bonham. In fucking incredible. The amount of accolades that could be bestowed on this song is endless. The music in and of itself, if this was a fucking instrumental, it'd be the greatest instrumental of all time. Then you add the vocals. Then you add like the fucking way that the vocals interact and Robert's accent on any word that's on this with what's going on with Jimmy and Bonham in the background. Fucking incredible. Now, the other part to this is I do like that it has like different sections. So the beginning part, which is just the acoustic guitar and the recorders. Remember, we all used to get recorders in music, right? When we were younger. So,
and I go,
that goes to the 2:15 mark and then gradually moves into the electric middle, right? And you can tell almost when he goes from the acoustic and then all of a sudden he's got the electric, like the strings get harder and you can hear it. Fucking love it. And it's starting to blow, like, build again, and then gradually moving into the guitar solo. But when Bonham comes in, fuck Phil Collins in the air tonight. That's the best drum intro of all time.
Yep.
And it's the part where Robert isn't singing and makes you wonder. He just says in that breathing section, oh, and that's when you know, and all of a sudden, boom, if there's you know it, because it's giving you chills when you think about it when it comes in. And that guitar solo, it has got so much touch and feel to it. It's almost like classical music. It's like Mozart or Beethoven. It is that emotional. And the way just the drums, and then listen to be your rock and not to roll. And then the way Bonham is almost like, I always pictured him like standing up, like pissed off, like fucking banging it like a hammer on the drums because they're so accented at the end. That build up that you almost feel when it comes down when Robert does like he's just like out of breath, like done, wiped out. You fucking finish it and he just hits the last cymbal and he like crashes on his drum set because his drumming is to me just as great as the solo that Page does. This is why John Bonham, to me, nobody can ever touch him. Nobody. And then it just ends with the famous lyrics. We also got to mention the fact that there's the spookiness of it. Stairway to Heaven. There's a lady. It's again about the afterlife and Satan or God or heaven. More of that mystique. And it goes to their biggest fucking song. So it adds to all that stuff. Then there becomes the stupid backmasking claim that when you play it backwards, satanic references, here's to my sweet Satan, the one whose little path would make me sad, whose power is Satan. He'll give you 666. It's just ridiculous. Stupid. And then I love it because Eddie Kramer goes in and talks about it. He calls it totally and utterly ridiculous. Why would they want to spend so much in the studio time doing something so dumb?
Yep. Hey, are you guys familiar with how this song was used. It didn't make the final take for the movie Almost Famous, which, Zeppelin is heavily used in that movie. But the scene that was cut was that the kid, the lead actor, who's supposed to be Cameron Crowe,
Yep.
he's trying to convince his mother that to go travel with the band, and he's 15, and he tries to explain to her the reason why. There's a scene where he sits her down and just plays Stairway to Heaven, and it's 8 minutes, and all they do is just the song plays and they're staring at each other, and he's like, this is why I need to go do this. And it didn't make the final cut because the movie was already long, but that's how strong Cameron Crowe felt about it, that needed to be communicated. And I think, just to put that in there and have the idea, and, obviously it's in the, if you buy the copies on the DVDs, you'll see it in there. But, even in a scene like that, it communicates how important this song is.
Yep.
I'll tell you why it wasn't used. The amount of money that they had to pay to use the full Stairway to Heaven song in a movie. It probably had to be.
Well, I think it was that, and I think it was probably like they realized audiences don't want to watch two people not talk while listening to a song.
Well, actually, he had showed them the cut, and they said you can use 4 or 5, like, because of their history. They allowed him to pick certain songs. I think for that one, it was probably the financials, but he had covered them throughout the 70s, and I think they wanted to do him a solid. But yeah, there was probably something, to that element as it, related to that specific song.
Yeah. One of the things that's so powerful about this song too, when they played it live, a lot of times, after the verse, and the forests will echo in laughter, Plant would always say, does anybody remember laughter?
Yes.
And Zeppelin was never a political band. And it's really not a political statement, but you can totally understand and use that term for today's day and age with the state of the world, the state of who we've become. Does anybody remember laughter? We don't laugh anymore. We don't, except on this show, when Tom makes comments like about rock and roll, but it's such a powerful, simple statement that Plant would say in the live performances of this song that could be so applied to today's world. And my favorite part of this song, if I do have a favorite part, is that moment before the solo. You have that triumphant presentation.
Yep.
And it's almost like they know that this song's fucking badass. Yeah. Like they're claiming victory before the solo. Like, we got it. And I love that, just that triumphant, like parade, however you want to describe it. It just has such a powerful, because it leads right into the solo, and it makes the song so much more uplifting, and it's just amazing.
And hence, when they know they just recorded this album, they can be like, fuck it, we're not going to put it out. You'll see. They didn't record fucking Pretty Boy Floyd album. Go, hey, put this out without a cover. This is what we released.
Listen, if you go back in time, and if Danger did the same thing on their third album, no title,
nobody would know the difference.
Danger Untitled, it would have been the biggest album in their.
Stairway to Heaven. We're Danger. We can fucking don't need that shit. Anyway, I mean, we could do this. We could do a fucking series, a podcast just on Stairway to Heaven. No offense. We really could. Let's flip the album over. Go to song 1 on side 2.
Back to the land of the Hobbit with Led Zeppelin. As it first was mentioned in Ramble On, the Misty Mountains that they talk about in the great J.R. Tolkien book, makes its triumphant return to the sounds sonically of Led Zeppelin, the sonic sounds of Led Zeppelin. This song is such a cool tune. Following up after you flip the album over and you start this again, this album continues to give you so many turns and so many different perspectives. And I always listen to this now as kind of like a bookend to Trampled Underfoot. The songs are very similar in terms of, the way the keyboards are played, the way the way John Paul Jones plays, over the riff, similar to that. It's such a, in terms of Plant's vocals, it's a great tune. And it was another one that was very prevalent when I was younger. The only thing that about this song is that you have such a great, impactful, beautiful song prior to it. Like, you're coming down after this song, and it takes you a bit, if you listen to it, to kind of get back into that mindset of a rock and roll tune, a rock song, because you've gone places your mind has never gone before with Stairway to Heaven. So it's a great song. I think as Bell, Evermore was a disservice sandwiching it between three songs of greatness. I almost think there's a tad bit of disservice putting Misty Mountain after the greatest song of all time. And you're supposed to just go back to what you were doing. But I love the tune. It's a unique vocal approach with what Plant does. And I don't think there's a song in their catalog up until then that really does sound like this. I think this was really unique at the time for them.
Yeah, Jay, I was just about to say it. Unique. Up to this point, there wasn't anything else that sounded quite like this. It's an upbeat. I mean, the lyrics, might speak otherwise. I always viewed it as a happy type song for them. Misty Mountain Hop, if you will. But I know it references to some of the. I think the time where Plant was arrested, and with the reference to the police, tell them to all get in line. But going back to, once again, with the Walkman, the drums, for the Sony Walkman I had, it was, I remember it being very heavy. And I know Bonham is prevalent through so many of the songs, but it stood out more on this one. And then this is actually one of the my more favorite Jimmy Page solos, because it is different than what we've heard prior to this point. We'll get more down the road, but it's one of the more upbeat songs that I would put on the list as it relates to Zeppelin.
Yeah, this has always been a go-to track for me on this album. I absolutely love it. Murph hinted at it with the drums. Bonham is absolutely pummeling the drums in this song, driving the song. But two things stick out to me that make the song extremely unique. John Paul Jones backing the rhythm of this song with that electric piano organ. You can hear it in the background. It adds so much texture, and it just solidifies the song. And we talked about Robert Plant's vocals. The vocal melody is weird, but I looking into this, doing some research on this, I think that was the point. I think the na 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 na, I think that was him like sing-songing, supposed to be almost like a hippie, just like hippy dippy kind of shit. And then when he's done, he's saying, what do you think I saw? And then it gets into like the Robert Plant that we know and love. So I think that, as kind of oddly sounding and maybe quote unquote unpleasant it may be to hear that vocal melody, I think it serves a point to the song. It refers to, there was an event on July 7th of 1968 called Legalized Pot Rally in London, and the police were there arresting people. And it's Plant's way of kind of celebrating joy and freedom and all that good stuff. But there's a funny part here. I know Murph will remember it. Zeus will too. Everybody might remember it. But every time I hear the title Misty Mountain Hop, I always think of a scene from Singles when Cliff is sitting on the edge of his bed and he says, "Where are the anthems of our youth? What happened to the music that meant something? The Who at the Kingdom, Kiss at the Coliseum. Where is the Misty Mountain Hop?" And I love that a movie, of course, Cameron Crowe made Singles, but I love a movie that takes place in the 90s, takes place during the alternative grunge scene. And Cliff plays the lead, the singer of a grunge band, that he references Zeppelin in Misty Mountain Hop. And I think it's a great song. I think it's unique. But I think Bonham just drives this tune for me.
Misty Mountain Hop, written by Page, Plant, and Jones. Yeah, I think I would put this in a kind of a section of Zeppelin songs that are happy. Celebration Day comes to mind. Misty Mountain Hop. It makes you feel like, oh, these guys are having a good time. They're actually not always so somber and serious and about devil and worshiping and stupid shit. So I like the song. It's catchy. The lyrics and the vocals, this is not an easy song. I can only imagine trying to sing this a lot. And the doubling of the vocals on this too as well, you pick up on tremendously. And it ain't Jimmy Page doing fucking helping out on the harmonies on this. So it's quite interesting. The drumming is obviously something that comes up and you can tell and pick it up because it's Bonham. And it's just another one of his incredible performances on a Zeppelin song. The fact that it's, and this is something I was just thinking about, you really could have some fun with this in changing the album order of the songs. Because what I think about is now, what if you took Rock and Roll and opened side 2 with that? How fucking badass would that have been? And you put Misty Mountain Hop right after Black Dog, still a good song, happy, go lucky, Battle of Evermore. Okay, well, now we're doing a little folk, and then you go to Stairway to Heaven. You're not complaining. And then you open with Rock and Roll on side 2, ending with When the Levee Breaks. That's pretty badass. Usually I don't think that songs can be changed on a Zeppelin album, but this one is a little bit different. I enjoy the song, and I know what other versions of this song that you guys are familiar with, because we had this at college. Everybody bought that Zeppelin tribute album. It's the opening track, and it's done by 4 non-blondes, remember?
Yep, and I love it. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to song number 2 on side 2.
Four Sticks. Again, John Bonham with a huge presence on every Led Zeppelin album. I love the fact that Zeppelin is the only band that allows their drummer to have a moment on every album, because you think of the Stones, the Beatles, all these other great bands that are part of that upper echelon of bands and artists. They don't give Charlie Watts a moment. They don't give Ringo Starr a moment. But you got John fucking Bonham in your band. You're going to give him a moment like Moby Dick. You're going to give him a moment like Four Sticks. Later on, you've got Achilles' Last Stand, which is essentially a Bonham song with the way his drum fills and all that stuff. And then you've got Fool in the Rain that has the diversity. Everyone talks about that being, a radio-friendly song later on. But if you listen to the drum track on that, and all the things that Bonham's doing, it's amazing. But getting back to Four Sticks, the guy plays with 4 drumsticks, for Christ's sakes. He's pounding the shit out of the drums. And that was such the uniqueness of Bonham was he hit the drums so hard, but he still had feel and a pocket. Because usually if you hit the drums that hard back then, you would be off timing, because you had to smack the drum and get back to the beat. He was able to do both, which is very unique. And when you hear him play, his pocket is undeniable. There's no one that's had a better pocket than John Bonham. But I love the fact that Zeppelin gives him a moment on every album. They gave him 2 moments really here with the solo and Rock and Roll, and now this. What's not to love about it?
I'll tell you.
Ooh, here it comes.
Yeah. So the reason why, Tommy, when you were saying why am I defending and speaking positively of Battle of Evermore, it's because I was saving my criticism for this song. This song, to give an indication where I'm going to lean on future songs and albums, I do not really have much of a like for the music and the influences of Plant that are represented on this song. It's never connected with me. Bonham's incredible. It resonates throughout the whole song, but even with Plant, this is kind of a pitch tone that I didn't really care for. And then at the end, it's just comes across as whiny. And as much as I love this album, this song in the moment, and, didn't care for it, and probably just skimmed over it in preparation in case there was anything that I forgot about or tried to forget about the song.
Well, thank you, Murph, because you said a lot of the things that I needed to say about this song. I love the beginning of it. I love the sound of it. I mean, I'm a drum guy. I love Bonham. I love anything drums, but it's just, it's plodding. It doesn't sound great for the almost 5 minutes that it lasts. I understand the influence, a lot of the Middle Eastern influence and some of the vibes, but tonality wise, it's kind of along there with Battle of Evermore. It's not pleasant sounding. It's just, as the song approaches, I'm like, what is, it's like nails on a chalkboard as the song kind of wraps up near the end. It's not enjoyable. It's just not an enjoyable experience for me. I like the way it starts. I like when it circles back and you can just hear Bonham just pounding away. I think that's fantastic. But the rest of the song sonically, I've just never been a fan of it.
Four Sticks, written by Page and Plant. This is one of, if not the worst Led Zeppelin song I've ever heard.
Yeah,
song is horrible.
Woohoo!
It's terrible. It goes nowhere. The only part that I kind of enjoy a little bit is that little kind of bridge where you stop. Like they get out of the dun 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 dun.
I hate that part. I hate that part.
I like the other part.
Yeah,
it doesn't work at all. It's a filler track. Do I hate it? I don't hate it, but it was always my least favorite track on this album. Not even close, and probably one of my least favorite, because there aren't really songs that are bad by Led Zeppelin. So this is just one of them. It's just not very good.
Zeus, didn't they have a lot of trouble getting this song right, in their opinion, when making the album? Because I thought when they were working on this song that other ones, came up and they came up with on the spot.
That's what led to rock and roll. They were getting exhausted working on Four Sticks, and Bonham just came up with the intro to rock, because they were just getting frustrated with trying to nail this down the way they wanted it. And that's what led to rock and roll, as we mentioned earlier.
Because they couldn't make it good.
Exactly, because it's not good.
So there's a version of this on the Coda remastered.
Yeah.
That they have, and they called it Four Hands.
Yep.
When they went to India and they started trying to perform it, it's on Coda, which also has a great section with the Bombay Symphony Orchestra of Friends on that. The Coda box set deluxe has a lot of great fucking obscure shit on it. You should pick that up.
It's awesome. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just this song. Let's see if they pick it up. All right. Next track.
This song has a huge emotional connection for me. After high school, I moved to California for a short time, and I was getting to know this one girl that I had worked with, and we had a really cool connection. And here I am in the midst of this relationship starting to grow. I'm packing my bags and I'm going to California. And the morning of my flight, she came over early in the morning with a mixtape. She's like, don't play this until the plane is taken off. I'm like, all right. So I put it in my pocket. This is back in the day when, you didn't really have to, you didn't have the security that you do now. So I put it in my pocket, brought my yellow Sony Walkman. So I get in and the plane starts taking off and I start playing and I hear Going to California as the first song. And every time I hear that song, I think of that moment. And because when I got back, she ended up dating someone actually she ended up getting married to. And, you always think of the time, if I would have stayed, would something would have worked out? Would have something happened? Obviously it's the unknown, but whenever I hear this song, I can't help but think of that moment. It's such a great song. Just the acoustic and Robert Plant and the lyrics, smoked all my stuff and drank all my wine. One of the greatest lyrics that they've ever written. Because I think most of us have all been there. But I love it. One of my favorite tracks on the album. Great song.
Not only In the discussion for my favorite Zeppelin song, in the discussion for my favorite song, period. This song to me is, I think, Zeus, what Thank You is to you. Moment I heard this, it's like, this song is awesome. I actually, over time, have become appreciative of the whole Laurel Canyon sound. I know it goes against, the taste of others on this discussion, but Joni Mitchell, Blue, that album, I understand where Plant kind of had that deep appreciation and connection for. Yes, just exactly. But I just think the lyrics are beautiful. The music is simple. And even last night, I was just trying to explain to my wife about just the use of the mandolin. And I pulled up, there's a clip from, I think, in the early 2000s where John Paul Jones was on a talk show and they said, "Could you play something for us?" And he just said, "Oh, maybe you'll know this tune," and just played the whole thing on the mandolin. It's one of those songs that even if you took out the lyrics, it still would be one of my favorite songs. Don't have a bad thing to say about it. Could go on for an hour about the song.
What a humble genius JPJ is, huh?
Yep.
How many fucking musicians could have done that just then and just not be bragging about it? Just be like, "Oh yeah, give me this, I'll do it." Fucking awesome.
If I had the ability to play the acoustic guitar that I own, which I don't, I can fiddle around with it and play some chords. If somebody said, "We're going to allow you to play one song," what is it? It would be Going to California, unquestionably. It is, to me, the greatest piece of acoustic music that's ever been recorded. It is a beautiful, wonderful, happy, emotional song. It's just, it just, things like this just remind you of the sheer genius of this band. That they can do Black Dog, that they can do Misty Mountain Hop, that they can do Stairway, and then they just do this, and it's just, God damn it, this band, like it's the harmonies, the sound, the melody, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's beautiful. It's timeless, and it's another song where there's no fatigue, like Murph said. You put it on right now, and I wish I had the patience to learn how to play this, or at least even fiddle with some of the chords and melody, because it's a perfect acoustic song. It's wonderful.
And very quickly, just how the song even begins with that deep breath at the very beginning.
I love it.
It just pulls you in.
So good.
Yeah. Going to California, written by Page and Plant. Yeah, one of the first acoustic songs that I ever liked. And obviously Zeppelin IV was the first Zeppelin song that I do. So I got used to like this Zeppelin sound of just the acoustic and Robert singing. It's a beautiful song. How the hell can you say anything but that? The song is just a lovely little ditty that they came up with, and with the added part of that incredible bridge that I love. It seems that the wrath of the gods got a punch on the nose and is starting to flow. I think I might be sinking. And then the little acoustic, little guitar fill. Oh my God. You know that part. It makes your hair go up, right? It's just so beautifully done. It's a nice, well-crafted song. So it's one of the things that you can do with Zeppelin that it's not wimpy. It doesn't come across as wimpy. It comes across as like emotionally uplifting. I think Rolling Stone had it as number 11 of the 40th greatest Led Zeppelin songs. There's a lot of the Joni Mitchell and her big buck teeth that Murph loves, the inspiration for this song. And it's just one of those things that just adds to the lore of this album. Going to California is just one of the tracks on this album, which blows your mind of all these great songs. But let's finish with the ultimate closer.
I hope I don't disappoint people when I say that the drum track recorded on this incredible song was not in the stairwell at Headley Grange. Okay. Everybody wants to say, "Oh, it's the echo that was in the stairwell that created the sound with Bono was playing." No, they used an echo module or whatever they used to create that drum sound for that song. It's why one of the reasons why the song was not played live very often was because it just didn't match what was on the album because of that echo that they had. So I hope I didn't disappoint anybody with that knowledge today, but that is the truth. Like Zeus said, this is the ultimate closer. It is so powerful. It is so like, man, how many minutes does it go by before the lyrics even kick in? I mean, you've got this whirlwind guitar riff with this drum beat, and you got this harmonica that sounds like a freaking freight train. Freaking just kills it. And dude, that harmonica sends chills through your body. Like, it's just so like, oh my God, like I've never heard a harmonica played on a song like that. Ever. And it's a, I don't know if you call it a cover or it's inspired by an old blues song from like the 1920s.
Yeah. It's typical Zeppelin. They get fucking sued for stealing something and changed it.
But this song was just, man, like, and again, like I said in the beginning, this was considered a deep cut back in the day, back in the 80s when we were like getting into Zeppelin and you know, the older kids in the neighborhood, not like my older brother's age, but like the kids that were like 10 years older than us, you know, or 12 years old, 14 years older than us. They had lived during Zeppelin being played. They're able to actually like see them possibly in concert and stuff. And, you know, you'd sit on the front porch and you talk to them and they'd be like, When the Levee Breaks is not known by a lot of people. And that's probably like one of their best songs. And now it's like a staple of their catalog. It's just weird how the world has evolved and music has evolved and how this song is now so prevalent on what used to be the great platform of rock radio. We all saw what happened in Katrina years ago with the hurricane, and the fact that there was a documentary made about this, and this song is in that documentary. You know, when the levee breaks, got no place to go. It so resonates today. It's such a, oh my God, it's just so powerful. I don't think there's a song in terms of in their catalog that has just the power of this song. Like there's great songs, but just the absolute punch right in the jaw. It's When the Levee Breaks. There's no doubt about it in my mind.
Jay, I think this song over time is going to be a deep cut once again, because I don't think outside of, Stairway to Heaven, I don't think people today are going to listen to an 8-minute song and appreciate it, because you're getting just so much delivered to you in the song, and it's a punch. It is a powerful song. Sorry to say it once more. First time I heard it, I was like, this is different. And that so many artists have sampled this over the years, because there's just different elements that you can take. And that, once again, it's a blues song, but it sounds nothing like their earlier stuff. This is their drop the mic to, even though the last song we were critical of, and I think fairly so, I still will say, just a perfect album. And, 8 minutes of rock and roll perfection.
All right. So the first time I was really kind of exposed to this song in memory is the Beastie Boys' Rhymin' and Stealin'. The opening track off of License to Ill, I was like, now that album came out in 86. So I remember by then I had already heard Zeppelin IV. But When the Levee Breaks is the last song. And at that age, I'm like, I can't make it to the last song. I have an ADD right now or whatever. But the drums on this song are just mesmerizing. I mean, if you're a drum guy like me, if you're a bottom guy like me and like us, I mean, this song is incredible. And Jay, you brought up a great point. It's like 2 minutes maybe until you hear a vocal. The solo, like what? I mean, just everything about this song. Now, it's funny because it's long. It's 7 minutes. And sometimes it feels like it's not going anywhere, but I think that's the point. It's supposed to really not go anywhere. It's just long, and it takes you on this journey. And when it circles back to the main rhythm and the main groove, you just like, fucking Zeppelin does it again, man. Like When the Levee Breaks just crushes. And I'm old school. You guys know I have like vinyl. I have an old fashioned stereo system in my living room, turntables. I got 4 speakers. You put When the Levee Breaks on, the fucking neighbors can hear it. And that's how it should be played. It's just a masterful song.
And then at the very end, you think the
yeah, I love that. The little, a little weird, little extra goodbye riff. I love it. Love it.
When the Levee Breaks, written by Page Plant, Jones Bonham, and Memphis Minnie. All right, here we go again. They almost made it with an album without any controversy.
Yeah, of course.
But When the Levee Breaks was a song first recorded by Memphis Minnie and Kansas Joe McCoy in 1929.
Yeah, Kansas Joe McCoy.
Great Mississippi Flood of 27. When the Levee Breaks, Zeppelin reworked the song, and so they give credit to Memphis Minnie now on the album tracks. Wow, it's got that thing, and Kashmir does it a little bit later too. The drumming, I always have this image in my head that I'm in like King Kong. That you're just hearing boom, boom, and like these trees, you can't see the beast, but some fucking impending doom is coming, and there's this boom, 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 and you're like, what the fuck is this? All from just Bonham's drums, and then this kind of, I don't know, hypnotizing, spooky fucking harmonica just comes in, makes me think of New Orleans. And voodoo and all this other shit, and you're thinking of a huge storm and all this, the imagery that this song gives you, and just boom, and you think of this crazy atmosphere, all just from the music, and then the way Robert sings and makes it it's so fucking different and cool. I love it. I always get this impending doom. Something's coming up when the Levee breaks. Oh shit, here comes fucking problems. And that break and that bridge is again, just like the part previous to that. Don't it make you feel when you're trying to find your way home, you don't know which way to go? If you're going down south, you got no work to do. If you're going down to Chicago, and then the like I can't explain it. And this is just one of the tracks on this fucking album. And then you hear, this is why everyone's just like, what do you say about Zeppelin IV? You got to feel it. You got to listen to it. You got to feel it,
Another song that Plant sampled in Tall Cool One.
Fuck Robert Plant solo albums.
It's almost like the harmonica is the siren in a storm. The way it's played, there's that one low part where I think it's Plant who plays the harmonica during the song.
Yeah, it is Plant.
Yeah,
it is Plant.
Yep. There's that one part where the harmonica goes down a register, and it's like this humming, and it's so like the hair on your neck stands up. Like it's like, dude, like that's so fucking phenomenal. But it's like the storm's coming, when they're the levee breaking because of the rain. It's like the harmonica is alerting the people of the town that they're in. It's like, it's so, man, it's like
it reminds me of too. I know Tom's seen Lost, and the siren goes off. And the fucking on the island. Like something's happening throughout that show. You hear that siren and you're like, holy fuck. And shit starts moving. That's when the levee breaks. That's the feeling you get.
Absolutely. Perfect.
Right? Wow. Only 8 songs, but we're done. Final wrap up thoughts before we rank the songs, Jay?
Ooh, man, where do I begin? I love doing this episode, probably more so than the 3 previous, and not because they weren't enjoyable as well. But this is just a emotional moment in my music journey because of the songs, because of how the band captivated me and when they captivated me. A perfect song on a near perfect album. This is the top of the mountain for rock and roll. And I know there's people that have disdain or dismiss the songs that are overplayed, but don't penalize greatness, right? Don't not appreciate the artistry, the body of work that this album is and what Led Zeppelin was.
Now, I know the three of you have all spoken to, you had either family or other influences that introduced you to, rock and roll and all different types of genres. Before this album, before I became familiar with it, introduced to it, I was more of just MTV singles, you might have had an artist that had multiple songs coming from the same album, but this was the band, this was the album that made me understand what the concept was of creating an album and looking into other types of music. So I look at this is the one that started it all for me at age 14. And this, I'm glad we are doing this right now. I know it took us 7 months to get here, but I've been really excited to talk about it because I didn't realize how important this album was to me.
All right. I'm not a troll. We don't troll on this show. We never have, whether it's talking Kiss or whatever. We're honest. So I'm going to say something that might mildly be considered controversial. I think this album suffers from a few things in terms of nostalgia, history, the mysticism, the lore, the legend, where it's almost impossible, in my opinion, to live up to that. I think the image of Zeppelin IV, just saying the words out loud to me, saying Led Zeppelin IV to me carries so much weight musically. Just saying that, it conjures up an image, it conjures up a sound. But I will say this, after listening to this album and spending so much time with it, and I know we've listened to it forever, I just don't think it's the perfect album that everybody thinks it is. I think we get and I'm guilty of this too. I do this with a lot of albums. I do this with Love Gun from Kiss. A lot of people think that's like the worst of the original 6 albums. I think I'm not comparing Love Gun to Zeppelin IV, let me be clear, but I think we get wrapped up in so much history and nostalgia in love of Zeppelin. This is a great album. It is an undeniable achievement in the history of rock. It is a foundational album. But I just don't think it's like the perfect. I sure as hell don't think it's the best Zeppelin album. That being said, I love the album. It's so hard to talk about Zeppelin without everything already being overrated, because it's like talking about this album is almost like talking about like Stairway to Heaven. What can you say about the album? To me, personally, it is a top-heavy album. There are dead spots on this album that a lot of other, or at least the previous 3 albums, to me personally, don't have. And we'll get into that when we talk about the ratings. But it's legendary. It's iconic. It's part of me and everybody else's growth period as a music lover. But I just think that sometimes we're just like, Zeppelin IV is the greatest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. It's number 1 on the greatest 500 albums I've ever. To me, it's just not. And I'm not trying to be controversial. I'm just giving my personal opinions about where I stand as a Zeppelin fan.
Zeppelin IV. I'll try to leave us on a better note. I hear you, dude. You have a right to your opinion. It's okay. I'm glad there's some variety in this group. To me, it's just, I think it deserves all the accolades and nostalgia and praise that it gets. It is that far ahead. Yeah, there are some songs that there's not 8 Stairway to Heavens. Okay, right. I get it. There's not. But there's a Stairway to Heaven. There's a Going to California. There's a When the Levee Breaks. There's a Rock and Roll. There's a Black Dog. I mean, it's an incredible album. When I look at it, I always try to think to myself, okay, now I'm reviewing this and I put this on the ARC list. I think like every one of our Zeppelin reviews we've done would be on top of our ARC list. That's how good Zeppelin is. That's how much better their albums are than most of the albums we reviewed. So when I want to be like, well, it's not perfect. How many fucking albums are perfect? How many albums do you like song number 9 or 10 on your list are that good? They're
Fair.
probably shitty.
Mm-hmm.
But, what's your 9 and 10 here? So not specific on this album, there's only 8. But to me, it's legendary. It's got Stairway to Heaven on it. It's got a bunch of other tracks that are equally as good. So it's the quintessential album. I'm not sure if it's the introductory album you should give to fans to get into Zeppelin. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe Zeppelin II might be more accurate of what they do, because not a lot of blues on this. I get when the Levee breaks a little bit, but there is no Since I've Been Loving You or You Shook Me on this or Lemming song. None of that stuff. That typical blues is not on this. So I think that's where this gives this album a little bit less of that hard blues and makes it more accessible to people, hence its popularity.
And Zeus, one of the things, for a song, an album like this, 3 of us had some pretty harsh words about Four Sticks. But even a song like that, like, well, Bonham's awesome on it. So even the songs that we're critical of, we're still finding nuggets that, it's why we like this band. That's why we're doing this.
It's not even
like hats on for Roy Harper. Who might have fucking talked?
It's not even my favorite album by Zeppelin. I also think, when Tom just spoke, there's some validity to that. However, I think when you listen to Led Zeppelin IV for the first time, you hear greatness. When you hear Led Zeppelin III, that greatness grows years, right? Mm-hmm. So the point is that Led Zeppelin IV, you have more time to pick it apart and find what you don't like, because it's such a powerful album. Whereas Led Zeppelin III is like, yeah, I like That's the Way. Yeah, I like Tangerine. I like Celebration Day. When you were maybe dismissive of it when you were younger, and a lot of times because of the thought police told you, oh, it's not that great of an album. So I think as you get older, there's a lot more newness in terms of the feel to it, of you appreciating it. And of course, Led Zeppelin II, like Zeus said, that's probably the better introductory album for a Led Zeppelin newbie or someone that wants to hear Zeppelin for the first time, because it's got really their backbone sound, that really kind of how they made their mark, and that heavy blues with a whole lot of love and Heartbreaker and whatnot. But yeah, I think like with anything that's great, over time, you try to find out, or you try to find what's not great about it. Whereas in Led Zeppelin III, it's almost like Led Zeppelin III, even though it was released before Led Zeppelin IV, there's a sense of like newness, like, oh my God, this is like a new experience for me. And of course, you're going to be excited and enjoy it more, because it's like, man, you're finding things that maybe you didn't hear the first time, which makes the album so much better.
All valid points. All right, let's get to the song rankings. 8 tracks. Let's go with the same order. Jay, what is song number 8?
Song number 8 for me is Four Sticks.
Song number 8 for me, Four Sticks.
Song number 8 for me is Battle of Evermore.
Killed an almost perfect fucking number 8. Yeah, sorry. It is not even close. It's Four Sticks. Jay, number 7.
Battle of Evermore.
Number 7, Battle of Evermore.
Here it comes.
I screwed this up. Sorry, guys. Number 7 is Four Sticks.
Number 7 is Battle of Evermore for me. All right, this is where it's going to start to get a little bit interesting. Let's go to song number 6.
I'm going to go with Black Dog.
Oh, my heart hurts.
Number 6, When the Levee Breaks.
Oh, my heart hurts.
Number 6, Rock and Roll.
Number 6, Mr. Misty Mountain Hop. That means everybody has a different number 6. Right?
Interesting. Yes. Yes.
Yep. So I told you it was going to start getting interesting. Here we go.
Yep.
Number 5 for me is Misty Mountain Hop.
Number 5 for me, rock and roll.
Number 5 for me is also Misty Mountain Hop.
Number 5 for me is now Black Dog.
Number 4 for me is rock and roll.
Number 4, Misty Mountain Hop.
4 for me is Going to California.
I ditto that, Tom. Going to California, number 4.
Okay.
My number 3 is Going to California.
Number 3, Black Dog.
My number 3 is When the Levee Breaks.
Tom, I'm with you again. When the Levee Breaks, number 3.
Okay.
Number 2 for me is When the Levee Breaks.
Number 2, Stairway to Heaven.
Of course, Murph ruins it. Or maybe not. Number 2 for me is Black Dog.
Number 2 for me is rock and roll.
All right, Jay.
Number 1, song that needs no introduction, Stairway to Heaven.
Unless it's me, number 1, Going to California.
Yep, Murph ruined it. Stairway to Heaven, number 1.
Stairway to Heaven.
Yep.
So I have it as Stairway, it's number 1, Going to California 2, When the Levee Breaks 3, and Black Dog is 4.
Nice. Okay.
I cannot believe rock and roll is not in the top 4.
I'm glad. It shouldn't be.
Fuck. All right, now we're going to go rank the album cover.
Yes.
Album cover. Jay, why don't you tell everybody how you ranked them originally?
Well, right now I've got Led Zeppelin 2, Led Zeppelin 1, and then Led Zeppelin 3.
As number 3. Zeppelin 3 is 3.
Yep.
So where are you putting Zeppelin 4?
It's the hard one. I love the Brown Bomber cover, Led Zeppelin 2. I love the mystery surrounding Led Zeppelin 4. I'm going to keep Led Zeppelin 2 as number 1, Led Zeppelin 4 at number 2, Led Zeppelin 1 at number 3, and Led Zeppelin 3 at number 4.
All right, Murph.
Okay.
All right, so I have Led Zeppelin 1, the number 1 slot, Led Zeppelin 3 in the number 2 slot, and then Led Zeppelin 2 coming in at number 3. As iconic, to use Tommy's line, as this album cover is, it doesn't do anything for me. So this goes in at number 4.
Tom.
So right now at number 3, I got Zeppelin 2. Number 2 is the debut album, and then my number 1 album cover ranking is Led Zeppelin 3. I'm going to agree with Murph. It's legendary, it's iconic, it's classic, but it just doesn't do much. So I'm going to put it at 4th.
I'm with you guys. They're all iconic. They're Zeppelin covers.
Yep.
But which Zeppelin cover moves me more? That's the difference. So I have Zeppelin 3 at number 1, Zeppelin 1 at 2, Zeppelin 2 at 3, and this is going in number 4. Now we do album rankings. Jay, you lead us off. Want to tell everybody where your rankings are so far?
I've been dreading this album ranking since I knew we were going to record this episode. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I revisited and listened to Led Zeppelin 4 for the first time all the way through in a long time. And I've listened to the individual songs and hear it, throughout the last decade, but I haven't listened to Led Zeppelin 4 all the way through. It's got to be 10 years, around 10 years. So listening to it to prepare for this episode, even though I probably really didn't, but I just wanted to kind of get the sequencing and the feel of the album and learn that again. If I have to rank number 1, it's Led Zeppelin 4.
Wow.
All right.
For me, right now I have Led Zeppelin 3, followed by Led Zeppelin 2, followed by Led Zeppelin 1. Jay, same boat as you. I would say over the last 5 to 10 years, Led Zeppelin III has, that is an album I've fallen in love with, because I think as, we change it, my music tastes have changed. I definitely have become more interested in the late 60s, early 70s acoustic folk rock, which, I just resonate with me listening to Led Zeppelin III. But as I've said all along, without Led Zeppelin IV, I don't get introduced to, music. It came to me at a time where it had an incredible influence. Listening to this brought me back, and it has to be same for me. Led Zeppelin IV goes to the top slot.
All right, for me, I have Led Zeppelin III. Actually, my rankings are in order that they came out. Number 1 is 1, number 2 is 2, number 3 is 3. A couple things are kind of penalizing here for me with Zeppelin IV. First of all, there's only 8 songs. So far, it's the shortest of the 4 albums we reviewed. And there's just a handful of songs on here I don't go to. I just don't listen to. And I mean, I feel like this is like un-American. And do you like Zeppelin? I gotta go with my heart. I gotta go with what I am as a music fan. And I love the songs that I love, but Zeppelin IV is going to go last for me.
Wow.
Oh my
Wow.
God. Oh, geez.
But again, like Zeus says all the time, the 4th ranked Led Zeppelin album is still like the greatest album by any other band. So it's not that I don't. It's not that I don't love this album. It's just like if I break it down with cold hard facts here, there's 8 songs, 3 of them of which I don't prefer. So you're talking almost half the album I don't really want to go to. And the other albums, I think, just give me more of a Zeppelin picture for me. I know this says Stairway to Heaven, but I don't know. That's just how I am.
All right. For me, I have Zeppelin 3, number 1, Zeppelin 2, 2, Zeppelin 1, 3. It's not better than Zeppelin 3 for me. It's just not. So I'm like, is it better than Zeppelin 2? If I do album clash type head to head, Zeppelin 2 would win. But the better songs other than Thank You are on Zeppelin 4. So, and I don't like instrumentals, so Moby Dick and Four Sticks can cross themselves off. So for me, I'm taking Zeppelin 4 as number 2 for me. So it's slightly ahead of Zeppelin 2. Zeppelin 3 is slightly ahead of my last pick, Zeppelin 1. They're all fucking great.
Oh, that's the thing. That's the thing. There's hairline like difference for me between but I mean, my 1st and 4th albums, I mean, for Christ's sake, we're ranking the first 4 Zeppelin albums. There's like fractions that separate each ranking.
I keep saying I'm going on my trip. What album am I taking? I'm taking Zeppelin 3, if I can only take one Zeppelin. So,
okay.
All right. Next, we go to this. Jay, what do you got in your bootleg spotlight?
We go to Osaka, Japan in 1971. This is kind of a odd time for Zeppelin in terms of touring, because Zeppelin IV came out at the end of the year 1971. And when they toured in 1972, a lot of the shows included songs from their next album, Houses of the Holy. So, and they did that a lot. You know, Zeppelin was kind of known for previewing songs that that they hadn't released yet live. You know, they've done that throughout their whole career. But what I like about Osaka, the show in Osaka, which was in September of 1971, a couple months or about a month and a half before the release of Led Zeppelin IV, is you really get a good kind of overview of their first 4 albums and a clean sound. Like, this is one of the best recorded bootlegs at that time, and you know, that was recorded in the late 60s, early 70s when they were touring. This has got such an incredible sound to it. It opens up with Immigrant Song, and in my opinion, it's probably the best live version of Immigrant Song on the bootleg platform. They go into Heartbreaker. Since I've Been Loving You sounds great. Black Dog, which is the first song they play from Led Zeppelin IV. Dazed and Confused it has a almost 40-minute version of Dazed and Confused.
Holy shit.
Just a tremendous, it flies by if that's even possible. They do go into Stairway to Heaven after Dazed and Confused. However, on this bootleg, for whatever reason, the song is cut. It's only about 4 minutes, and it takes kind of after the solo or before the solo on. And the reason why I still enjoy listening to it, because in my opinion, it's probably the best Led Zeppelin Stairway to Heaven solo that Page has done recorded. It's so clean and it's so good. It's just, it's masterful. They do go into Celebration Day, which was on Led Zeppelin III. Then they did like their acoustic set, which they started to really kind of grow into in 1972 and so on, where they did like, I think 4 to 5 songs acoustically, but they did That's the Way, Tangerine, and Friends. And they did a cover of Smoke Gets in Your Eye after Friends, into What Is and What Should Never Be, Moby Dick the solo, and then another 35-minute version of Whole Lot of Love, which has an incredible medley in there. Then they go into Communication Breakdown. They do an organ solo into Thank You, and then they end the show with Rock and Roll. So there was a few choices to go with. A lot of stuff was earlier in the year, which was more Led Zeppelin III heavy. But they really didn't start. I mean, they barely ever did When the Levee Breaks. I think they only did When the Levee Breaks less than a handful of times. And one of the reasons why they did When the Levee Breaks, I think they did it the first time at Chicago Stadium, was because Jimmy Page had broke his hand. And it's one of the songs that he could play because of that. There was a couple songs in the set that he couldn't just because of his hand. But there is a version of When the Levee Breaks that was recorded during a sound check in 1971 or 72 that was released about maybe a year ago, a little over a year ago, that was just unearthed, that had never been heard before. And that is absolutely incredible. And they also, on that same sound check, they recorded the Wonton song, which they never did live.
Oh, nice.
Or during that period. So, yeah, there's some really cool stuff out there, but there really wasn't too much in way of 1972 and 71 with a lot of live stuff. The only songs that they really incorporated from Led Zeppelin IV later on was Going to California and Misty Mountain Hop. But, Black Dog, Rock and Roll, Stairway to Heaven were staples. And then Going to California, Misty Mountain Hop were added. I don't believe that they played Four Sticks very often. I don't think they ever did Battle of Evermore. I'm trying, and I know for, they did a very limited run of When the Levee Breaks. So, but it's a great bootleg. It's a really clean, good sounding show. And like I said, the solo that Page plays on this bootleg of Stairway to Heaven is probably one of the best, if not the best, solos he's done live.
And Jay, is this September 29th, 1971?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Yeah. I'm looking online right now. There's bootlegs available. One of them is called Live in Osaka. There's another one that it's called Festival Hall. According to the official Led Zeppelin website, it's September 29th, 1971, Osaka, Japan Festival Hall. That's what they call it.
Yeah, like a lot of bootlegs, you're gonna find different names depending on who puts it out, right? Mm-hmm. The September 29th show is the best. I think there's a couple songs on there that are taken from the 28th show because they played 2 nights, but the majority, the probably 95% of the show is from September 29th. But as always, as I always talk and mention, when you go and buy a bootleg, I'm sure you'll be okay with this, but always listen first before you buy, because
if you can,
you could get a crap version of a bootleg, and that's no fun.
Yeah, Zeus, this double CD is available on eBay for $19.95, which actually is a pretty good price for.
All right, Jake, can you tell people where they can find you?
Thanks, Zeus. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Murph, for doing the Zeppelin Chronicles 10 years after Led Zeppelin III. I appreciate it. I myself have become a grandfather over the last 10 years, and Zeus been actually living in Greece. And what's that?
Zeus now looks like the guy on the cover of Zeppelin IV. That's how long it's taken us to get to this episode.
Yes. Tom got a hair transplant, and
exactly, yeah.
Yep. And Murph, I don't know what happened, man, but you really let yourself go. Get on a diet plan. You need to stop drinking those chocolate shakes. But as you people can find me, we just celebrated our 4-year anniversary with
Congrats, buddy.
We celebrated our 500th episode with Dax Nielsen from Cheap Trick.
Nice.
Man, it's been 4 years that I've been doing this, and just love it and enjoy it like I did the first time I've done it. But you can find me at The Hook Rocks on all podcast platforms. You can subscribe, follow, like, whatever. I always appreciate reviews, so please write a 5-star review if you can. But enjoying this. We've got some good stuff coming up too as well. We're on all social media platforms: Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. The big three. Search us up at The Hook Rocks, and we're also on Threads now too, which we're still trying to figure out how that whole thing works, but we'll get it going. But yeah, you can find us at all those locations. Enjoy the episode. There's over 500 now, so thanks again for the opportunity to do this. Zeppelin Chronicles, love it. Even though you get my ass up early in the morning on a Sunday, bullshit.
You need it.
Murph, are you alive over there? What do you do these days?
I'll just jump on a podcast with you gents every 7-8 months, and the time in between listening to everything you drop. So always enjoy listening to your interviews, entertainment. Keep it up. Going on vacation in a week, so hopefully there'll be a couple more dropping between now and then that I can take with me, and as I sit on the beach and stare into nothingness.
Tom, what about us? Are we around?
We're around. Go to him.
Go to him.
Our website, shoutitoutloudcast.com. That's where you can find everything. If this is your first time hearing our show, we are usually an all Kiss podcast that drop Kiss-related episodes every Saturday. We do album review crew episodes once a month. We do Dorm Damage episodes where we talk about pop culture, music, movies, etc. We do those usually once a week. And Zeppelin Chronicles comes out. Usually we time this with Halley's Comet. So this will come out, who knows when. But visit our website, shoutitoutloudcast.com, for all the information about us. And, of course, follow us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and now Threads as well. And our email at shoutitoutloudcast@gmail.com. Please comment. Tell us what you think of Zeppelin IV. Am I wrong? Should it be higher like these guys think, or what? I don't know. We'll know. But anyways, love you guys doing this show. This is amazing. Nobody else I'd rather be spending time with talking about Zeppelin. So Jay, Murph, Zeus, as always, awesome stuff.
Yeah. So, Tom, tell people our website, shoutitoutloudcast.com, shoutitoutloudcast.com. Make sure you look at the Zeppelin Chronicles page. You can click on that, see where we rank these albums, see where we rank all the songs. And please put your comments on the website. Those comments stay. So unlike the social media posts where they, through time get pushed further down, the comments on the website will always remain, and we'd love to hear from you guys. So please, let's do that. But before we move forward, we always end with famous last words. Let's start with Jay. Do you have any?
This song features my hometown, Chicago. So, of course, I'm going to go with When the Levee Breaks, but that's not the lyric that I'm going to choose. I think the heaviest, most impactful lyric in this song is one sentence that's repeated. And that is, crying won't help you, praying won't do you no good. And I think that signifies the alarm, the tragedy, as Zeus would say, something bad is happening. I think that line,
ending doom.
Yes, I think that line is just so powerful. And
yes, agreed. It's awesome.
I think that's the lyric that I'm going to go with.
Murph.
For me, find a queen without a king. They say she plays guitar and cries and sings. La 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 la.
How's that last part go?
La 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 la.
Yeah, it sounds just like Plant.
It's amazing. It's like he's in the room with us.
Murph, karaoke Wednesday nights.
God. All right.
Murph, you got to just go with it. People shit on the way I sing. I sing all the time on the show.
We have a rule in the Murphy house: no singing allowed. It is clear that there is no talent on that side, so that is a rule.
I can understand why.
Yes.
You're a ball buster, Murph.
All right. I didn't notice, but it had got very dark, and I was really, really out of my mind. Just then, a policeman stepped up to me and asked us, said, please, hey, would we care to all get in line? Get in line!
All right, well, I'm going to end it with what else? Again, no other song will ever be as big as we've ever had it on this show. So I'll start with the opening lines from this. There's a lady who's sure all that glitters is gold, and she's buying a highway to hell. Jay, Murph, Tom, Loudcasters, Kiss Army, Zeptards, thank you.
Long overdue, guys. Great to catch up. Look forward to seeing you, hopefully, sometime again in 2023.
Doubt it, but hopefully as well.
Guys, great time. Love talking Zeppelin, especially when it's an overrated album like Zeppelin IV. Sorry. Love you guys.
Till next time. Peace out, Girl Scout.